the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 676, Jianshan's Warning. In fact, what Tang Mao said was what everyone wanted, but they all knew that they couldn't get what they wanted. Moreover, what Tang Mao said was not wrong. With his magic of destruction, it completely violated the common sense of magic. How could some organizations that control the world allow such people to exist? No one was saying anything, but Apis took the initiative to lean next to Tang Mao, looking very happy. Tang Mao would naturally not refuse someone who came to his door. Although he couldn't do anything practical, he could still comfort him. Ling Ling, who was sitting next to him, looked at the scene in front of her with contempt. But when she thought of what happened on the way here, she didn't hurt Apis. After all, this dead snake girl is not afraid of a fight to the death. She and Tang Mao are of the same type. Face is something you can choose or not. But Ling Ling is naturally not like that. Hey, is your flame getting stronger again? Apis snuggled in Tang Mao's arms and asked telepathically, your master is getting stronger all the time. While Tang Mao was speaking, his hands were constantly changing their shapes. Well, it's pretty good. Especially since Apis was covering for him. Sure enough, the contracted beast is true love. Bah, you are the servant of this queen. Apis pouted her lips, and there was a hint of cuteness in her charm, which made Tang Mao's appetite surge. But there was no place to eat here, and there was ice everywhere. If he came out, he would be frozen stiff before he could eat. Although his body was very strong, the most fragile thing of a person should not be allowed to go out and play at will. A gust of cold wind blew, and some snow silks as thin as cow hair began to fall continuously. However, no one cared, thinking that it was caused by the strong wind blowing the snow. But when Jianyu was on guard in the second half of the night, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Why do I feel like it's snowing, not snow blown down by the wind? Although the wind didn't stop, Jianyu always felt that something was wrong, so he woke them all up. Tang Mao, who had just fought a battle, was sleeping comfortably. After hearing Jianyu shout, he had to get up. After taking his hand out of Apis's warm bosom, Tang Mao set up an independent space for Ling Ling, and then walked to the entrance of the cave. What's wrong? What happened? Why are you shouting? Boss Tang, this snow doesn't seem to be blown down, but it's snowing. Jianyu said nervously. Everyone here knows what snowing in Xianshan means. This is a warning from Xianshan. If they haven't left when the mountain is closed by heavy snow, they can only wait until the beginning of spring next year before they have a chance to leave. As for whether they can wait until next year, this is obviously still a problem. Not to mention anything else, they don't have enough food. This is why Jianyu is so nervous. Don't worry, it just gave us a warning. We will leave here tomorrow. There are still a few days before the snow blocks the mountain. It's enough, Tang Mao said calmly, after taking a look. With the Xianshan white tiger outside the cave as a means of transportation, it is not difficult to leave the territory of Xianshan Mountain. If they were on their own, it would be a different story. Xianshan Mountain is full of dangers, and it is snowing again. It is really not easy for unfamiliar people to leave. Are you sure this is just a warning? Nanju looked at the snow and wind, which seemed to be getting bigger and bigger, and asked with a little doubt. I told you, I have come to Xianshan several times. And even if I'm not sure, Xianshan White Tiger is not stupid. Didn't you see it is still resting? Nanju looked over, and sure enough, Xianshan White Tiger did not move. At its level, it has a keen perception of natural hazards. Moreover, since it has survived in Xianshan until now, Xianshan White Tiger naturally knows more about this place than them. Since it has no reaction, it seems that there is indeed no problem. After confirming that everything was fine, everyone continued to rest. There was no conversation that night. The next morning, they returned along the same route under the leadership of the White Tiger. By daytime, the light snow had stopped. Obviously, the snow last night was just a reminder. However, although it was just a reminder, most of the demons had already begun to hibernate. On the way back, they were also smooth sailing. After the white tiger sent them all the way to the place where they had climbed the mountain before, it growled a few times, indicating that it could not leave here. Tang Mao also nodded in understanding. The white tiger of the Skymark turned and left. After all, it was time to spend the winter, and it also needed to prepare some food. After the white tiger of the Skymark left, the white crystal-like world began to snow heavily. In just a few minutes, the ice ground as clean as glass was covered with a layer of soft snow. Is this just a warning this time? Looking at the heavy snow that began to fall, Nanju looked at Tang Mao and said, "It's obvious that the mountain is about to be closed." Tang Mao looked around. The heavy snow had blocked his view. With the roar of the Xianshan white tiger when it left, he could guess it without thinking. Damn it, let's leave here quickly. This damn place is beautiful, but it's deadly. I will never set foot here again in my lifetime. Zhao Manan looked around and complained. However, Tang Mao did not intend to leave in a hurry, but observed everywhere. Ai Jiang Tu asked curiously, "Tang Mao, are you not leaving yet? Are you willing to leave like this?" Tang Mao asked back without turning his head. When they heard it, they were all stunned. Coming to a forbidden place like Xianshan Mark, is it really just for adventure? Of course not. They came here for the natural treasures here. But even if it was a good treasure, they didn't dare to search for it because of the current situation. Roar. Before they could speak, a tiger roar came over. Hearing the sound, several people looked at the place where the Xianshan white tiger had just left. In their opinion, the tiger roar should be the Xianshan white tiger that left, telling them that they could no longer stay here. However, when they saw the figure clearly, they immediately became alert. Because this is not the Xianshan white tiger. This is another unknown white tiger. But just when they thought they needed to fight, the huge body suddenly shrank into the same size as the little guy who was sent away by Tang Mao before. Oh, isn't this the little guy? Mo Fan and others were fine. After all, they had seen the mini black snake. But Ai Jiang Tu, Nanju, Guanyu, and Jiang Yu were completely encountering this kind of monster that can grow big and small. This is an ability of the totem beast. Tang Mao looked at the few people and explained, and then picked up the big package that the little white tiger carried back. To be honest, I don't know how this little guy got such a big package, but looking at this appearance, he must have gained a lot, right? As soon as Tang Mao opened it, hundreds of years old Xianshan holy lotus, energy crystals, ice spirit seed fragments, and other various rare treasures appeared in front of everyone. The few people who were originally attracted by the little white tiger were immediately attracted by this bag of rare treasures. Everyone here has taken risks and obtained some precious resources in dangerous places. However, such a rich harvest is almost something they dare not even think about. But it is right in front of them. Apathy seemed to be attracted by something and walked over first, took some crystals and said, "I want these." "You're welcome." Although he said so, Tang Mao obviously didn't mean to blame him. After Apathy took some crystals, Tang Mao looked at Mo Fan and the others and said, "Let's take the things and go. We'll divide the spoils when we get to the bottom of the mountain." Chapter 677 The Ancient King's Request. The return journey was relatively smooth. The snow had come, and many creatures in the Xianshan mountains had naturally hidden in their nests. If they continued to wander outside, who knows if they could find their way back to their homes. Leaving the Xianshan mountains, there was no need to follow the Xianshan Great Rift Valley. Just head to a place with a lower altitude and try to get rid of the snow first. Everything else would be easy. The higher the altitude, the more terrifying the ice and snow cover. Many times, the snow was like a slow-moving avalanche, starting from the highest point of the Xianshan mountains and reaching the meadow layer, including the desert layer, which would turn silver white. At that time, most cold-resistant creatures would find it difficult to survive, not to mention many outsiders who did not have cold-resistant properties, such as humans. Finally, they returned to Wangi town. Compared with other people who needed a while to recover before taking a hot bath, he and Apis entertained directly in the water. Sure enough, people are people. Living in such a desolate place is really uncomfortable. Let alone him. Even Apis is increasingly yearning for life in the human world. However, Apis doesn't really like taking a bath. She just enjoyed the water temperature for a few hours and then went back to her room. For this lazy little beauty, she hasn't had a good beauty sleep for several days, which is simply a disaster. In addition, she just had a meal in the bathtub, and now she is really sleepy. Apis went back to sleep, but Tang Mao didn't leave. For him, staying in this bucket of water with a temperature that is neither hot nor cold is the real enjoyment. Bang. Just when Tang Mao was enjoying it, the wooden sliding door was pulled open. Tang Mao originally thought that Apis had lingered, but when he opened his eyes, he saw that it was Muningsu who came in with a wooden bucket filled with bath towels, fragrances, and clothes in both hands. Her sexy and fascinating snow silver long hair had been tied up, revealing her delicate and impeccable cheeks and slender neck like a snow swan. Most importantly, she seemed to be preparing to take a bath. She was also wearing a very lazy and low-hanging suspended dress. The thin little dress could not hide the magnificent waves that were about to burst out. After seeing Tang Mao, Muningsu paused and said, "Why are you still here?" There was nothing to be surprised about. After all, everyone needs a comfortable hot bath now. Of course, it's to wait for the water temperature to be adjusted for you. Although she looked exhausted just now, Muningsu obviously has some effect in restraining fatigue. "I just want to take a bath." Muningsu looked at Tang Mao and expressed her meaning. "Yeah, of course, just take a bath." Tang Mao also nodded quickly. An hour later, Muningsu lay beside the bathtub, thinking silently in her heart that men's words are liars. Tang Mao took a bath for a whole day, and when he came out refreshed, he saw Ai Jiangtu and the others lying there listlessly, as if they had not recovered yet, looking at you one by one. Those who know you think you went to Xianshan, and those who don't know you think you have experienced a big war. Zhao Manan said dissatisfiedly, "Boss Tang, you look like a dog." "Damn, Zhao Manan, are you a bastard? How dare you scold me? Don't you know that the sound insulation here is very poor?" Zhao Manan did not show any fear at all, but looked at Tang Mao with a belly full of dissatisfaction. Can't you just be a human being? Do you know how we got through this day?" Zhao Manan became more and more unhappy as he spoke, as if he was going to give Tang Mao, a guy who only cared about the opposite sex but not humanity, a violent wave to rush out. Well, he was just thinking about it. After all, talking nonsense is one thing, and taking action is another. If he takes action, he will definitely be the one to be beaten. There is no need to think about it. After Linglin came back, she kept studying the totem mark of the little white tiger. As expected, she really found that the little white tiger was really the closest to the sacred beast white tiger. At dinner, there was a plate of braised beef and a messy table. The little white tiger had completely turned into a greedy pig. It ate so much that it was a disgrace to the tiger clan. Its stomach was about to burst, but it was still stuffing food into its mouth. What's even more ridiculous is that it couldn't eat anymore. It actually found a grassy or muddy place where no one else knew about the braised beef, dug a hole to hide it, and then ran away quickly, fearing that others would discover its treasure. At the big table in the restaurant, Tang Mao, Mo Fan, Muningsu, Zhao Manan, Jiang Yu, Nanju, Ai Jiangtu, Guan Yu, Lingling, and Jiang Shaoxu were just like they had met for the first time that day, staring at each other with their eyes wide open, and no one seemed to want to speak. But Apis thought the little white tiger was very interesting. After the meal, they returned to their rooms. As for whether everyone rested quietly that night, no one knew. At least Tang Mao didn't have any intention of being quiet after another day of rest. Everyone separated. Ai Jiangtu, Nanju, Guan Yu, and Jiang Yu were going back to the north, and Tang Mao and the others were naturally going back to Yuxunyu City. They had just returned to Yuxunyu City and had rested for less than a day when Mo Fan came with a soul body. The soul body was naturally the queen of the Nine Netherworld who stayed in the ancient capital. "Hey, Mr. Tang, long time no see." The queen of the Nine Netherworld appeared, and her delicate voice came out. Anyone who didn't know that she was a dead soul would probably be attracted by her. "You are not in your tomb palace. What are you doing in the human world?" Tang Mao was quite curious about the arrival of the queen of the Netherworld. After all, the woman had been sent to Zheng Kang when he met her before, right? "The king wants you to do him a favor." Seeing that Tang Mao was not affected by her at all, the Queen of the Netherworld spoke. What does he need my help with? Tang Mao sat up from his recliner. The king's war in the underworld is going very smoothly now, but Qifu seems to want to play dirty. The king is not concerned about the affairs of the underworld, but the woman who lives near the ancient capital makes the king more worried, so he hopes that you can bring Kinjua to Yuxunyu City. The Queen of the Netherworld stated her purpose. Kinjua is a human being after all, and there is no way she can live in a place where the undead live. So, when Tang Mao took her to see Zinkang, she was arranged by Zinkang near a village in the ancient capital. And now, the war in the underworld is extremely fierce, and Qifu seems to have become a grasshopper in autumn, so Zinkang is worried about Kinjua. Did you bring her here? Chapter 678, Heresy. Tang Mao's perception was still very strong. There was no one here, except Mo Fan and Ji Huaohao. Isn't this to ask you if you agree? Ji Huaohao shrugged. After a silence, Tang Mao said, let's go and find her. In my territory, I will keep her safe. Ji Huaohao nodded, and Tang Mao looked at Mo Fan and said, how is Mu Bei? Su Crossing has woken up, but he is not well now. Mo Fan told Mu Bei's general situation. Then you go find what he needs, and you don't have to worry about domestic affairs. Mo Fan didn't refuse anything, agreed and left. After Tang Mao and Ji Huaohao arrived at the ancient capital, they quickly found Kinjua's residence. Although she and Zinkang were already on different paths, she seemed to know that Zinkang was not dead and Zinkang went to save her, so her life was not so tragic. The whole person was no longer as confused and unknown about life as before. Queen Ji Huaohao did not go in, but chose to stay outside. In fact, she did not like Kinjua very much. After all, her king was the object of her obsession. But the king who had merged some of Zinkang's memories did not miss her, but was obsessed with a woman who had been frozen for many years. Therefore, she had almost no reason to like Kinjua. Huh, it's you. Kinjua noticed when Tang Mao entered the yard, but obviously did not expect that the person who came was him. Could there be someone else who often comes here? Tang Mao asked back. No, Kinjua shook her head, and then said, thank you. Nothing. Tang Mao smiled and said, do you know about Zinkang's battle in the underworld? He told me. What happened? Kinjua asked anxiously. No, but now is a critical moment, and you are his weakness. So he wants you to live in my territory. Hearing this, Kinjua hesitated. Obviously she didn't want to leave here. Someone is coming. At this moment, Tang Mao suddenly sensed several powerful auras. He really didn't expect that someone would come right after Zinkang noticed it? Kinjua also sensed a very powerful aura approaching here, and Ji Huaohao had already floated in. After looking at Kinjua, she looked at Tang Mao and said, it's someone from the Holy Court. How did you know? Tang Mao asked with a little curiosity. Although the undead don't interfere in the affairs of the living, we still know some of the top forces. Ji Huaohao responded in a light voice. You two go first, and go directly to Yuxunyu City. Leave this to me. I'll stay and help you. Kinjua also understood that these people were coming for her. At this time, how could she leave first? Your staying is not helping me, but adding trouble to me. Stop talking nonsense and leave quickly. If Kinjua was here, if I stopped her, wouldn't it be obvious that I was making things difficult for the Holy Court? Even Tang Mao now couldn't openly confront the Holy Court. The Queen of Nine Netherworld naturally understood this truth. After explaining a few words to Kinjua, she took her away. The moment they left, Tang Mao burned the house completely with a flame. At this moment, a group of 5 people came over. Although Tang Mao knew that several people were coming, he didn't care about them at all. He sat there leisurely, watching the house in front of him being burned to ashes in just a few seconds. Why is there a fire here? Where is the witch who lives here? After one of them came over, he asked Tang Mao. Tang Mao turned his head and looked over. The man who came over looked arrogant, and wore the clothes of the Yi Yuan. The whole person was completely the kind of arrogant. Boy, didn't you hear me talking to you? He used the international language, so Tang Mao naturally understood. However, hearing his impatient tone, Tang Mao stood up and asked back, who are you? You don't know what tone and attitude to use when asking for help? Do you know who we are? The man's face suddenly turned pale and looked at Tang Mao and said. Obviously, he didn't expect that Tang Mao would dare to talk to him like this. There are few people in this world who dare to talk to them like this. Wearing this outfit, no matter where he goes, no matter whether it is the elders or the heads of the clans, they are all polite to them. Who are you, and why do you mind my business? Can't you see that I'm playing with fire? Get away and don't disturb my interest. You rude thing. Do you know that in the highest law of the Magic Association, if you insult the judge has the right to execute directly? Church Judge Mola, he is Tang Mao at this moment. Perina of the Parthenon behind recognized Tang Mao, walked in front of Judge Mola, and whispered. Huh. Mola was naturally not unfamiliar with the word Tang Mao. However, his expression was still disdainful. Looking at Tang Mao, he said, boy, I'll give you one more chance. Tell us where the witch has gone. Otherwise, based on what you have done, and your obstruction today, we can execute you on the spot. You look like a mentally retarded person. Tang Mao didn't take him seriously at all, and still looked arrogant and unlimited. Cardamola, we are ordered to capture the witch. Although Tang Mao is outspoken, he is not weak and the chief magistrate has told us not to get into trouble with him. A dwarf with light blue hair came to Mola and said. Perina on the other side also said, Carda, if you fight with him, you will be dragged, and there will be no chance to capture the witch. Although Mola was furious, after listening to what the two said, he just snorted coldly and said, boy, don't let this magistrate meet you again. You won't be so lucky next time. After that, he was about to leave with a few people. However, just when they were about to move, a thunderbolt suddenly fell. Boom. The place where the thunder fell was naturally their way forward. However, they were all top masters, so they would not be bombed by such a thunder. Looking at the big pit in front of him, Mola couldn't imagine that someone dared to attack the people of their court of dissenters? Question mark? You bastard, you came to the land of China, barked at me for a while, and you want to leave like this? Thunderlight floated around Tang Mao, and the sky was also covered with dark clouds and lightning. Chapter 679 Looking for Trouble. Mola turned around and looked at Tang Mao. When he was about to speak, Perina stopped him. Then Perina came out and said, Sir Tang Mao, Mola's judgment was also due to the urgent task, so he may have a bad tone just now. I apologize to you on his behalf. We still have official business to attend to, so we won't disturb you from playing with fire. Seeing Perina's humble appearance, Mola was a little puzzled. Could it be that this kid really has strong strength? Otherwise, how could Perina, who is in a high position in the Parthenon, be so humble? The other judges were even more puzzled when they saw this. Is his tone bad? I have never seen such an arrogant person since I was a child. Not to mention the scum of the court of heterodox judges. Even their chief priests are not so arrogant when they see me. Let him come over and apologize to me. Otherwise you can't leave. Tang Mao seemed to be unreasonable. As if he couldn't leave without a fight. Perina was stunned for a moment. It was the first time she met such a person who didn't give way. There is no benefit in going against the judges of the court of dissenters. Mola pointed at Tang Mao and said, this judge has finally understood. You are probably an accomplice of that witch. You are here just to delay us from arresting people, right? Stop talking, you bastard. Show your true colors. Whether it is the Holy Court or the Court of Dissenters, Tang Mao doesn't like anyone from this force. Usually, he can give them some trouble. What's more, they are here to block the way today, and Mola has also given him a reason. How can he let them go? Boom. The moment Tang Mao finished speaking, several thunderbolts fell together. The four judges of the Court of Dissenters and Perina each used their own defensive means to block this thunderbolt. Fire Domain Flame Dragon. Boom. As soon as the thunderbolt in the sky was blocked, the ground veins fluctuated, and then the fire dragon soared into the sky. Mola felt the difference in this flame and hurriedly used a high-level water shield defense. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. But how could Tang Mao's fire be blocked by such a high-level water shield? If it weren't for the fact that several people had excellent magic tools, this wave of impact would have been enough to injure several people. At this moment, Mola's eyes changed a little. Take him down. This kid is also an alien. After Mola gave the order, several judges of the Court of Dissenters naturally stopped passively defending and for a while, the magic of destruction was cast one by one. There was no way what Tang Mao had just cast was at most high level magic, but the destructive power completely exceeded the power of high level magic. Such a person, the court of dissenters had to take down. However, what surprised Tang Mao was that Perina actually retreated far away when they attacked. Mola was also puzzled. At this time, why did Perina retreat far away? Mole Judge, I'm here to capture the witch with you. I will not get involved in other things. At this time, Perina said calmly. As for Tang Mao, who had a relationship with both candidates for the goddess of Parthenon, she didn't want to offend him. The most important thing was that she was there when he made a big fuss on the Parthenon mountain. She didn't want to provoke such a dangerous person. Boy, your magic is beyond common sense. If you surrender now and go back with us, you may get a light punishment. Otherwise, without waiting for Mola to finish, Tang Mao said directly, fuck you. The Holy Court is said to be a force to deal with any evil forces in the world. However, in Tang Mao's view, they are more like they exist to deal with people who are stronger than them. If you don't accept the toast, you will be punished. Take him down, no matter if he lives or dies. Being insulted repeatedly, Mola, who is used to being hypocritical, naturally couldn't stand it. After shouting angrily, it was no longer a small fight as before. The Star Palace has begun to flicker here. Super level thunder punishment, a tsunami, and the gate of the hell of fire. For a time, super level magic everywhere came towards Tang Mao. This is not a turn-based game, so Tang Mao will not stand here and passively take the beating. When the four destructive forces bombarded here, he suddenly disappeared. Boom. The huge mushroom cloud exploded in the center in an instant. The damage caused by the destruction magic of the four top superclass mages almost razed all the houses here to the ground in an instant. Thunder Halberd. But Tang Mao did not know when, but appeared behind Mola. The same Star Palace flashed, and a Thunder Halberd in his hand was thrown directly at him. Blessing of light. Facing the halberd that cut through the sky and caused the space to vibrate, Mola was shocked and hurriedly put on his armor magic and also used his strongest defensive magic. The other several judges also rushed to him together, each casting defensive magic. Boom. But even though there were 4 of them, 3 of them rushed here in a hurry. Under the bombardment of Tang Mao's Thunder Halberd, which was like a forbidden spell magic, all the defenses of the 4 people were destroyed in an instant, and the 4 people flew back directly. This village, not only was it razed to the ground, but also lifted up a full dozen meters of ground. This lightning halberd directly cracked the armor and magic tools of the 4 people. They looked at their armor and magic tools in disbelief. It was hard to imagine that this was the power of a superclass mage. The magic tools of the 4 people were almost shattered by the blow, and the powerful thunder of destruction made them feel numb all over. But how could this be the end? Since he had already made a move, he naturally had to teach the other party a profound lesson. Gate of the Flame Prison. That is to say, Tang Mao did not mean to kill them. Otherwise, after the fusion of Yanji, even if these people's strength belonged to the top combat power of the superclass, but with a fusion of Yanji, it was completely equivalent to the destructive power of the forbidden spell magic. How could the few people in front of him resist it? Boom. The fire wave rushed straight towards the 4 people. The 4 people did not even have a chance to run. In an instant, they were swallowed by the fire wave. The impact of the fire wave and the destruction shattered their armor and magic tools in an instant. As for their resistance, it was almost useless. The fire wave dissipated, and the 4 people fainted directly. At that moment, Tang Mao actually wanted to kill them. Although he beat them to death and even severely damaged their foundation, with the existence of the Parthenon force, they would recover in no time. So for now, he just vented his anger for their arrogance. But he also knew that he couldn't kill them. If he killed them, it would be a complete confrontation with the Holy Court. Although this force is not popular, it is absolutely not good for him to confront it head on. Otherwise, he would have directly merged with Yanji and turned them into slag in one wave. Chapter 680, Curiosity after Jiuao. Additional update. Although Perina of Parthenon knew that Tang Mao was not easy to mess with, that was after he used that trump card, right? But she never thought that Tang Mao could not use that forbidden technique to deal with the 4 top fighters of the Court of Distinction? Question mark? Moreover, it was just a few minutes. She couldn't believe that Tang Mao had become so strong in just a few years. Question mark? Hey, wait for these bastards to wake up and tell them that next time they make trouble, it won't be as simple as a beating. Tang Mao moved his tibia and then appeared in front of Perina, who was standing in the distance, and said in a light voice. Tang Mao suddenly appeared in front of her, and Perina took a few steps back in fear. She only saw that Tang Mao's thunder and fire destructive power was extremely strong, but she didn't expect that his space system was so strong. I know Perina almost didn't know what to say at this time. He even felt that the court of distinction was right. This is an alien. After Tang Mao left a word, he left. Perina also saw that Tang Mao was just trying to intercept them. He was just looking for trouble. Of course, this was also because Mola of the Court of Dissenters liked to give this opportunity. Otherwise, even if it was Tang Mao, in Perina's opinion, he would not act so easily, right? If he was really not afraid of the Court of Dissenters, how could they still be alive now? After dealing with the pursuers, Tang Mao caught up with Kinua and Jiuao. Seeing him chasing so quickly and unscathed, Kinua didn't feel anything. After all, although her cultivation was not weak, she hadn't fought with anyone for a long time. So she didn't know whether she was strong or weak, and whether Tang Mao was strong or weak. Of course, she could still sense the destruction magic behind her. However, she didn't think that the thunder and fire that emanated here would come from Tang Mao's hands. Compared with Kinua, Jiuao's eyes were filled with a trace of fear. Did you deal with those people? Didn't you feel the fighting energy just now? Tang Mao asked back. Of course. But, didn't you use that power? You. Jiuao didn't know what to say. It was hard for her to imagine that Tang Mao was dealt with by those people like this. After all, even if it was her, well, she could deal with 1 or 2, but 5 people were top notch in the superclass. She was afraid that they would be smashed to pieces in a minute, right? Is it necessary? Tang Mao said again. Kinua listened to the conversation between the two, and then said blankly, are you so powerful now? She herself couldn't believe it. Her growth was already terrifying. But compared with Tang Mao, it seemed that she was nothing. Question mark? Of course, Kinua just hadn't fought with anyone for many years. But her strength was not weak. After all, she was 1 against 7 in the original book. Moreover, others just fought with her. They didn't dare to confront her head on. She was just an ice type, but she was an ice type. She could fight 7 superclass masters alone and remain undefeated. We can't just stay where we are, right? That's right. The 3 of them then returned to Yuxu City very smoothly. After settling Kinua, Jiuao left. Even when she left, she still felt a lingering fear. She also knew a little about Tang Mao's demonic system. After all, she and Mo Fan were quite familiar with each other. It was just that she didn't expect that Tang Mao could be so powerful without demonization after not seeing him for such a long time. The last time he demonized, he was able to fight against Khufu. Jiuao was very curious. Could Tang Mao reach that level after demonization? Question mark. The matter of arranging Kinua's accommodation was naturally handed over to Muningsu. He naturally wouldn't care about such things. Of course, when he took Kinua to introduce it, he introduced it very clearly. The Back Mountain, Yushish's residence. Since Kinua came to Yuxu City, 2 weeks have passed unknowingly, but there is no news from the Holy Court. It's as if their people deserve to be beaten by him. On the other hand, New Bay seemed to be alive again in the Parthenon. However, several people seem to have noticed the traces of the Black Church, and then they explored and searched for them these days. The Black Church is now regarded as the kind of rubbish that is not in the mainstream in his eyes. They did not come to cause trouble, and Tang Mao was too lazy to look for their traces. To put it bluntly, the Black Church forces that make the world feel that hatred is indelible are actually nothing in front of these top forces in the world. The reason why they can exist until now is nothing more than the helmsmen of these forces are fighting for their own rights. Of course, to put it bluntly, these are not important to Tang Mao. What he wants in life is to enjoy. Yushish's residence has almost become Tang Mao's exclusive place for large-scale entertainment activities. The Liuru sisters were also brought here. In recent days, He and the 4 girls have been studying various projects that can make him happy very seriously. The 4 of them are also awesome. In just 1 month, almost all of them have been unlocked, no matter what difficult moves they are. During this month, all kinds of strange things happened all over the world. The coastline of China was constantly invaded by sea monsters. The battle stretched from the northernmost Dalian Ocean battlefield to the southernmost Hainan Island, including Asuka Base City. The new war city was flattened in a cold winter backtide not long after it was built. Various sea monsters that had never been seen appeared, making the war on the coastline never stop. With a coastline of 20,000 kilometers, it must be said that China is currently one of the countries most seriously invaded by sea monsters. Of course, the situation here is not good, and similarly, the situation in Japan is also extremely difficult. Although they have been dealing with marine life for a long time, and almost every Japanese magician is good at naval warfare, but with the endless appearance of monarch-level sea monsters, what can they do, even if they are good at it? You know, the harm of a sea monster monarch is enough to make a city feel destroyed. Moreover, monarch-level creatures appeared in every battlefield, and their coastline even shrank. According to the speculation of some spectators, the terrifying monster behind the frequent appearance of monarch creatures is likely to be a sea monster from the Sea Monster Empire. However, these have little to do with him. After all, the day when Zhu Xiangshan foolishly humiliates himself is coming soon, and Mo Fan, the thief, is not here yet. At that time, he can only choose to go down in person. Chapter 681, Monthly Ranking Number 1. Yuxu New City Back Mountain. It should be a few days before your duel with Zhu Xiangshan. You don't practice or make any preparations every day. Is it really good? Yushishi sat beside Tang Mao and rubbed his waist. Even if you have an iron body, you can't stand this kind of play. He has been a little too much these days. Damn it, I'm in such a bad mood now. Can I calm down if you let me practice? Tang Mao, who was lying on Apus's calf, said dissatisfiedly. Useless servant. Apus fed the peeled grapes and said with disgust. He naturally chose to ignore her name. After all, enjoyment is real. It's just a name, and there is obviously no need to care too much. Useless. My big cow plows 4 fields and keeps them moist, but it's useless. You can talk, but don't do it. It will affect the king's peeling. Apus said slightly uncomfortably. Little snake girl, are you getting more and more used to me now? Tang Mao felt her trembling and asked with a smirk. Apus suddenly stood up, and Tang Mao, who had lost her footing, naturally fell on the soft mat. The reason why she made such a big move was naturally not because of a few words. It's just that this bastard actually moved the upper part and touched the lower part. She was not afraid of being touched or anything, but with his current bird-like appearance, he finally got himself into trouble and didn't even have anyone to water him. Tang Mao fell on the mat. Before she could say anything, Xiao Fengji floated over. She looked aggrieved. What's wrong, little girl? Tang Mao looked at Fengji and then at the little white tiger behind it. The little white tiger was still a little timid in front of Tang Mao. Turning around, he ran towards Yushishi. There was no way. If there was no heart to warm herself at this time, it would be very dangerous. As for why it chose Yushishi instead of Apus, who was close to it, it was because the smell of Apus made it feel uncomfortable. Even though it knew that the other party was not a threat to it, it would still not approach her instinctively. Yara Fengji told Tang Mao the whole story when the little white tiger ran away. In fact, it was nothing serious, just that her favorite grilled chicken wings were stolen by the little white tiger! Exclamation mark. But she couldn't beat this stinky brother, so Xiao Fengji could only come to find her parents. After Tang Mao understood, he turned around and saw that the little thing had actually hidden in Yushishi's arms. You little pervert, if you keep robbing my woman, I'll chop her off. Although this was not the first warning, every time the little white tiger heard that it was going to be chopped off, it immediately chose to stop moving. In fact, it rubbed, and it definitely didn't have any bad intentions. After all, what bad intentions could a tiger have? It was just acting like a spoiled child. Woo, the little white tiger called out in a low voice, as if admitting his fault for being greedy. Although this little thing has always known its mistakes, but refused to change. Tang Mao couldn't really give it a beating. After all, this guy will be the legitimate successor of the White Tiger in the future. Now he is just young and ignorant. However, regardless of whether he is sensible or not, he still reached out and grabbed its neck and then leaned over. It doesn't feel good to lean on a white tiger, but Tang Mao is such a big person, and he still leans on him. He really treats her as a human cushion. Yushishi pushed Tang Mao away without saying a word, and at the same time got up and left the cushion. Woo, the little white tiger looked at Tang Mao, who was pushed here, and called out happily. It seemed to be saying to Tang Mao, "I want to rub my chest. Are you as cute as me?" He casually threw the little guy in front of Fengji, and then said, "You two should do what you should do, don't delay dad's recuperation here. There will be a battle of bullying in a few days, so you need to rest well." He didn't know whether the two little guys understood or not, but Yushishi and Apis understood it. The duel between the two was being promoted internationally. Yushishi didn't understand. Wasn't this a battle between the strongest young people? Why did it become a battle of bullying when it came to Tang Mao? While she was thinking about it, she was pulled back to the mat. It was broad daylight and the sky was clear. It was naturally suitable for welcoming nature, enjoying nature, and integrating into nature. "Don't give it to me. Return it to me," Yushishi refused. Although there were generally no patrolling mages approaching here, what if someone came to Tang Mao for something? In that situation, she didn't want to be seen by anyone. Of course, Apis had been directly ignored. After all, she was a frequent visitor. Tang Mao held the plate and spun it left and right, as if to express his dissatisfaction with being pushed away just now. Apis on the side thought with envy, "Can you still play like this?" Then he lowered his head again. For a while, he fell into silence. On the path leading to the back mountain, Ding Yumian looked at Liuru, who brought her to find Tang Mao, and asked, "Are you sure he is not in the mood today?" Ding Yumian wanted to find him when he knew Tang Mao was back, but the last scene is almost still in his mind. Liu Zion is fine, but Liuru is simply amazing. The most important thing is that this person has completely refreshed his cognition. What 1v1, 1v2, it's so weak. Tang Mao, this big beast, is 1 against 4. When Ding Yumian went back, he was wondering, isn't he afraid of dying on a woman's belly? Although she has not experienced these, a woman who has a good relationship with her in school has told her about it. What about her first boyfriend, who looks good but is useless? What about seconds? So, after seeing that Tang Mao can persist from morning to night, Ding Yumian feels that this guy's an immortal pile driver. It's so embarrassing that she really doesn't want to come again. But she can't not come, because this is a task assigned to her by her elders. "Don't worry, can I lie to you? This dog man has been dying these days." Liuru patted her chest and assured, "That's often limp." Even if she was pressed, she couldn't compare. Looking at Ding Yumian, she was a little envious. "By the way, Yumian, what exactly do you want to do with him?" Liuru didn't notice Ding Yumian's envious eyes. After all, for her, there is nothing to envy. A full man doesn't know the hunger of a hungry man. Maybe it means people like her. Ding Yumian is not an airport, but compared with her graceful figure, some aspects are indeed not good enough. In short, no one is perfect. Chapter 682, the final result. It's not an important matter, it's just that the elders wanted me to thank him, and also. Ding Yumian hesitated for a moment, but Liuru was one of her close friends, so she continued. "Also, the elders and some younger generations in nearby cities, although they have a good life, I don't know what happened recently, someone always attacks their people. Those same kind encountered this kind of thing, but they couldn't get help from regular forces, so they asked the elders for help. The elders were thinking, can they also be included in Yuxu City to live?" Originally, seeing Ding Yumian was still a little hesitant, Liuru thought it was a big deal, but after listening to what she said, she couldn't help but said, "That's it." Ding Yumian was slightly stunned. "Does this matter seem small? Question mark? Ding Yumian sighed slightly, and then said, "You are special. You don't know that the survival of the blood clan is not as easy as imagined." After she became a blood clan, she was lucky to be favored by Tang Mao, and he also settled them down. The most important thing is of course the power that Tang Mao gave them, which made the strength of their sisters almost comparable to that of the demons at the commander level. Facing such a powerful blood clan, how dare ordinary people provoke it? Living in the Magic City, Tang Mao also knew the members of the tribunal there. With their green light, they lived completely like ordinary people. But those blood clans pretending to be ordinary people are naturally not so lucky. When no one is watching them, it is still good. But once some forces or some strong people are eyeing them, they have almost no way to deal with it, except migrating and fleeing. Large-scale migration is also a very troublesome thing. After all, going to a new place means going to someone else's territory. Once the blood clan here has a connection with the government or something, if they don't bow their heads, they will have only one choice, the fate of being destroyed. After Ding Yumian's story, Liu also realized the seriousness of the matter. Then he said, then why not just let them come to Finio City to live? Without the consent of the owner of this area, who dares to let them come? Ding Yumian shook his head and said, then you can go to Muningsu. Tang Mao is a hands-off boss who doesn't care about these things at all. Liu said again, the elders have told us that we can only ask Tang Mao for his opinion on this matter. After all, he is the one who gave us protection. We can live in peace in Magic City and Finio City, so. Ding Yumian actually wanted to find Muningsu at the beginning. But she is not the owner of this place after all, and Muningsu doesn't seem to know much about the affairs of the blood clan. Their commander-in-chief is naturally Bala, but Bala fell into a deep sleep. There is no way to find him, except to find Tang Mao. Okay, but I think he will definitely agree. After all the legitimate profits you have generated have been given to him. How can he not agree? The blood clan does not need money, they just want some blood. And getting a moderate amount of blood will not have any impact on anyone. Moreover, they are not vampires who have lost their minds, and they don't need it every day, almost only occasionally. In addition, they rely on their own abilities, and they are willing to exchange, plus they each have a small industry under their name, which can almost be said to be a huge profitable group in Yuxunu City. So Tang Mao protects them. Moreover, with Bala watching, everyone is also very sensible to abide by various rules. In Hangzhou, there are Tang Zhang and Tang Yu who will deal with some difficult and complicated cases. In the Magic City, there is Lenking, and in addition to the several nearby cities, who doesn't know him? As long as there is the sign of Yuxunu City, they will get a pass. Well, I think so, but I still have to tell him. Ding Yumian responded. While the two women were talking, they had already arrived at the place where Tang Mao, Yushishi and Apis were recuperating. But after arriving here, Liu was stunned, and Ding Yumian was also stunned. At this time, the flickering scene in front of him really made Ding Yumian feel dazzled, and he turned around and left here in a hurry. Liu cursed, you bastard, aren't you afraid of dying here? With Tang Mao's mental power, they must have been discovered when they set foot here. This guy must have done it on purpose. And the one who was more embarrassed was, of course, Yushishi. She was so angry that her face turned red. After all, this was not the first time. After Liu followed and chased after him, she didn't know how to speak for a while. Although it was not the first time that she had seen the white flower, and there was nothing good to see, she had what she had. But Ding Yumian seemed to have been tricked by herself, and was very embarrassed. That, I don't know. Don't blame you, he did it on purpose. Ding Yumian's flushed little face looked very angry at this time. With Tang Mao's strength, it is impossible that he didn't notice the arrival of the two of them. It was a misunderstanding once or twice, so how could it be a misunderstanding after so many times? Question mark? How about I tell you? Liu said again. Thank you, but this is clearly planned by them. Ding Yumian now understood everything. How could the elders have any shitty friends? They just wanted to send her to Tang Mao. Otherwise, how could they wait patiently for so long? It's planned. What does this mean? Liu tilted her head and asked with doubts. The elders asked me to come here, but they didn't ask anything for such a long time, and they insisted that I see Tang Mao, all just to send me to him. Humph. Although Ding Yumian didn't say it, Liu understood it. Did he ask? Liu asked. Does it matter? Ding Yumian sat down against a big tree weakly, showing a little sadness. Liu felt a little distressed when she saw her like this. But she was no longer the little girl in the ordinary crowd who didn't know anything at the beginning. There was no way for her to participate in this kind of thing. Just like Ding Yumian said, no matter what was decided, does it matter? Question mark. The two women were speechless for a long time, just sitting here. If you don't like it, you can try to refuse. I think he shouldn't embarrass you. After all, he has so many women. Liu persuaded. People are greedy. How can you be sure that I'm not? At this moment, Tang Mao appeared behind them. After hearing what Liu said, he added, Chapter 683, he became good after a beating. Hearing the sound, the two women turned around at the same time. The sudden appearance of Tang Mao scared the two of them to stand up. After all, they didn't know whether Tang Mao had been chasing them from the beginning or had just arrived. They didn't know what he had heard. Of course, what he said at the end must have been heard anyway, so there was no need to think about it. What are you two doing? Am I a cannibal? Seeing the two women's reactions, Tang Mao said with a little displeasure. Try to have someone appear behind you quietly. How do you feel? Liu stared at Tang Mao with shame and anger. It seemed to be because of what happened just now, or it might be because they heard the whispers of the two people. Who said I didn't make any sound? It's just that you two were too focused. Tang Mao continued. After he finished speaking, he sat down where Ding Yumian had just sat. There was still some residual heat. Tell me, you have been here 2 or 3 times. What do you want me for? Tang Mao asked again, after he sat down. Ding Yumian had come several times, but he didn't think much about it. After all, if there was something, she would wait for him, but she only came a few times in the morning and evening, and never came again. Tang Mao naturally thought that nothing happened, but seeing that she came again today, he was a little curious, wondering if this girl had encountered something. Of course, Tang Mao would never think about being impressed by his charm. In her eyes, she had never had any other feelings for him. What else do you have to pretend? Don't you know what she wants you to do? Aren't you afraid of dying one day? Humph. Ding Yumian hadn't spoken yet, but Liu was like a machine gun, shooting Tang Mao, as if he had really done something unforgivable? Question mark. Tang Mao was stunned, and without saying a word, he suddenly stood up and pressed Liu against the tree, and then a big slap came down. Pa. You little bitch, you're rebelling. Pa. What did I do to make you so angry? Who are you talking to? Liu, a typical tiger girl, and Tang Mao felt that it was necessary to teach her a lesson. In the past, her sister was beside him, and he couldn't teach her a lesson. After all, her sister was too well behaved. Today, she pointed at her nose and scolded her, and Tang Mao was confused by the scolding, so he naturally couldn't continue to indulge her. Liu was beaten and almost cried. It wasn't that painful, but it was so embarrassing. Ding Yumian stood aside, neither stopping nor not stopping. Still scolding me? Tang Mao asked after beating her. No. Liu was almost embarrassed to death, and she was still hard. After being released, she got into Tang Mao's arms, looking like she didn't dare to see anyone. After dealing with the irritable Liu, Tang Mao looked at Ding Yumian and asked, "What's the matter? And what you just said seems to be related to me. He just came here after finishing the job. How could he know what they were talking about?" Hearing this, Ding Yumian came back to his senses from Liu's high-end operation. She was a little hard to accept. Liu, who had a little temper just now, was lying in Tang Mao's arms, as if she was acting like a spoiled child. Ding Yumian didn't know that Liu was embarrassed to face her. After all, Tang Mao didn't give her face. "Don't you know why I came here?" Ding Yumian asked. "That's it. Don't you know it well?" Liu also whispered. "What do I know? You just came up and scolded me." Tang Mao retorted to Liu, then looked at Ding Yumian and asked, "You'd better say it directly. What I hate most is guessing riddles." Though looking at Tang Mao's appearance, it seems that he really doesn't know. Ding Yumian was tangled in his heart for a while. She was struggling whether to tell the truth to Tang Mao. "What are you talking about? Hurry up and tell me." Tang Mao paused and suddenly thought of something, looking at Ding Yumian and teasing. I say, your elders don't want to send you to warm my bed, do they? As soon as these words came out, Ding Yumian was really stunned. Did I guess right? Looking at her like this, if he still didn't understand, how could he mingle among the flowers? Well, can you help me talk to them? Ding Yumian saw that Tang Mao had guessed it, so he tried it. If I don't help you, what will you do? Seeing that Tang Mao didn't respond to his question directly, Ding Yumian was a little panicked, but still said truthfully, if you don't help me, then you have to accept me. I am a vampire. What's wrong with a vampire? Isn't the one in my arms also a vampire? Tang Mao felt a little funny. But I don't like you having said that. Ding Yumian naturally didn't need to hide it. Do you think it's important to like or not? How many marriages between aristocratic families are based on mutual love? Of course, some people did disobey, but in the end they still obeyed obediently. Tang Mao said. If he had just walked out of the village, he would not have so many thoughts. But now he naturally would not believe those things anymore. It was just a touching TV show, nothing more. Have you ever thought about why your predecessor asked you to follow me? Ding Yumian paused. She really didn't know among your clan members. You are the best one, and you and I have known each other for a long time. So he chose you. If you let me refuse, it means that your family may drift away from Yuxunu City. I'm not a person who keeps my chastity, so if I refuse you, what will your predecessor think? Have you thought about these? Go back and think about it carefully. Your choice is not important to me. The main thing is you and your family. After speaking, Tang Mao and Liu Ru flashed with silver light and disappeared on the spot. Ding Yumian didn't even have the chance to speak again. Obviously, she had never thought about these things. Since entering Mingzu Academy, Ding Yumian felt that she could stay here for the rest of her life. Dean Zhao was also willing to protect her. All she had to do was to devote her whole life to this school. She completely ignored the family's affairs. With silver light flashing, Tang Mao took Liu Ru back to the previous place. However, Yu Shishi was gone at this time. Did she seem to go back to take a bath? After returning here, Tang Mao lay on Apus's legs again and gave Liu Ru a look. She sat on the other side of Tang Mao and began to move his tabia. Sure enough, he couldn't do it without recuperation for a period of time. Just now, after a simple exchange, he felt as if he was missing a part. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 684. Who is worthy of her except me? Liu Ru had no temper at all now. After all, she had never been beaten before. Apus asked curiously, servant, how can you fight with others in 7 days? None of your business. HMPH, if you lose, I will go to Zuziangshan and you will cancel my contract. Apus said dissatisfiedly. Of course, what she said was naturally angry. This little snake has been with Liu Ru, the tiger girl, for a long time recently, and has also learned a lot of naughtiness. However, for the sake of this comfortable pillow, Tang Mao ignored her. Liu Ru asked weakly, is the matter you talked about with Yuman really that complicated? It's not like she hasn't seen the elder of Ding Yuman before. Isn't he a very amiable person? Moreover, they are obviously afraid of Tang Mao to death. How could such a situation be formed? Of course not. Tang Mao was completely different from the way he responded to Ding Yuman before, and said very directly, Liu Ru stopped her hand movements after hearing this, and looked at Tang Mao and said, then what did you do just now? I was greedy for her body, otherwise why would I say so much nonsense? Seeing him so confident, Liu Ru didn't know what to say for a moment. Don't stop, I'm just feeling uncomfortable, keep rubbing. Although she was very unwilling, she still pressed her hand on it. Sure enough, the body's reaction was much faster than the brain. What's the difference between you and those evil people? Liu Ru said dissatisfiedly. Oh, then I have another way to express it to you. Tang Mao said, turned over, stretched out his hand, to let her lie on the lawn mat together. The difference is that he rested his head on Appis's legs, and she rested her head on Tang Mao's arms. Do you think, in this world, besides me, Tang Mao, who else is worthy of Dingyumian? Liuru opened her mouth. It was a simple question, but she just couldn't say it. After a while of silence, she said, there will always be someone better than you, at least more loyal than you. If you say that, I feel that you are rejecting Dingyumian from becoming your sister. I didn't really? If not, why did you decide for her? Besides, am I not the best person you know? Is there someone more suitable for her than me? You don't want her to live alone for the rest of her life, do you? Seeing that Liuru didn't know what to say, Tang Mao's mouth corner slightly raised. She can still argue with him with crooked logic. As for Apis, she was just a spectator, and because she just watched in vain, and didn't taste any sweetness, she was unhappy. The next day, Tang Mao finally came out. In fact, during this period of time, everyone thought that Tang Mao was in seclusion. After all, the duel with Zhu Xiangshan was coming up soon, and the Magic Association did not allow superclass mages to fight privately. But this time, they not only did not stop him from fighting Zhu Xiangshan, but also made some small publicity. The situation in the ocean was so severe and there was a shortage of combat mages. The Magic Association certainly did not want to see it. I think this time they agreed to this battle, and it was indeed to encourage combat mages. So, Tang Mao was not coming out of the back mountain at the moment, and everyone subconsciously thought that he was in seclusion. Who would have thought that he was just being extravagant in the back mountain until now? Fan and Zaomanan seemed to be still in Greece, checking the matter about the Black Church. They had no intention of coming back to participate in the duel between Tang Mao and Zhu Xiangshan. There was no way. Zhu Xiangshan might be touted as very strong internationally, but the two of them had been following Tang Mao for so long, and they knew very well who was strong and who was weak. Not to mention Tang Mao personally going on the field. Fan felt that, even if he went on the field, his strength might not be comparable to that of Zhu Xiangshan. As for Tang Mao, a non-human Zhu Xiangshan would undoubtedly be asking for trouble if he fought with him. However, although the two of them knew it well, they were still uncertain. For example, Jiangtu and others also knew about the fight between Tang Mao and Zhu Xiangshan, so they came to support them. The reason why Tang Mao returned to Yuxu City today was undoubtedly because many acquaintances came, among which, his eldest wife Tang Yu came back. With Tang Yu back, Tang Mao naturally did not dare to continue his life like before. The eldest wife's face must be given. Otherwise, the little brother was chopped off that day, and I don't know why. After Tang Yu arrived, Tang Mao took her to stroll around. Interestingly, when they were strolling in the back mountain, Tang Yu and Tang Mao met a group of miners, and there were also several war beast mercenaries who came to cause trouble. It was also their bad luck that Tang Mao cremated them with the fire. As for the miners in the mine here, they were naturally gathered by him immediately. As for what happened later, it was fully handed over to Muningsu. On the way back, you really don't care about anything. I really don't know what qualifications you have to be the owner of this place. Tang Yu said with dissatisfaction to Tang Mao's behavior of not caring about anything. Speaking of which, it was Muningsu. If it were her, she would definitely kick this guy. This hands-off shopkeeper is too direct. Actually, I also care about something. Isn't it you who are back today? Of course I have to accompany you. Well, Tang Mao argued. Do you think I believe it? Tang Yu asked with a blink. What reason do you have not to believe it? When I came here, I asked about some things about Yuxu New City. Tang Yu said again. Tang Mao shut up decisively. I don't blame you, but I feel that this is unfair to Ningxu. Tang Yu shook her head and said. You are wrong to say that. We are a family. There is no fairness or unfairness. You will be the founder of the family in the future. Whether it is you or her, you are laying the foundation for my Tang family. Of course, the most important thing is that you need to work hard. Tang Mao said very seriously. Tang Yu looked at Tang Mao with a little confusion, obviously not understanding. Is that the important point? The most important thing for the establishment of a family is naturally the family members. Although there are many people with the surname Tang in the village, there are not many of them from my branch, and they are not my descendants. Why should I fight for them? Tang Mao said it so clearly, Tang Yu naturally understood it immediately. It was rare that Tang Yu was still a little shy. Although she didn't know how many times they had rolled in the sheets, she had taken measures every time. At least she had never thought about the child before. Of course, she had never thought that Tang Mao would mention this matter, but she didn't expect that he would take the initiative to bring it up today. Although she didn't resist in her heart, Tang Yu still said shyly, and Tang Mao also looked full of joy and expectation, and hugged her. With tears in her heart, she left here. There is no way. This waist is afraid to be broken. Chapter 685. It's all Zhu Xiangshan's blame. Although I feel exhausted, I still have to pay the public grain. But if I want to satisfy all the people who eat the grain within one day, there is obviously not enough time. After all, no matter who feeds the grain, it will definitely not be completed without an hour. He is not a second, so it is difficult for him, right? I really don't know how some people can keep a dozen hungry people obedient in one day. They have extraordinary physiques, so their tolerance is naturally extraordinary. How can it be done without 2 or 3 hours? There are only 24 hours in a day. Tang Mao felt that he was already very strong. Unfortunately, the higher the virtue, the higher the devil. In the early morning, a breeze blew, and Tang Mao opened his eyes in a daze. After handing in his homework last night, he felt that he might not be able to see the sun this morning. Fortunately, he was still alive, awake. When he was staring at the clear sky outside the window in a daze, Tang Yu's voice came from the side. Hearing this, Tang Mao looked over. Well, you are worthy of being the first wife. She became more charming and attractive, and very moist. Drink this bowl of soup. I made it for you this morning. Look at what you are like now. You still want a baby? Originally, Tang Mao felt quite accomplished when he heard Tang Yu making soup for him this morning. But why did he feel awkward when he heard what she said later? Was she saying that she was not good enough in disguise? Question mark. Can he bear it? After thinking about it for a while, he could really bear it. Thank you for your hard work. I'm a little tired after practicing in meditation for a long time recently. Tang Mao argued, then picked up the bowl of soup and drank it. Tang Mao, do you think I'm easy to fool? Tang Yu suddenly asked. Practice? Practice a ghost? How can he practice with peace of mind just because of that little goblin in the back mountain? Does he really think she knows nothing? Seeing that Tang Yu was about to talk to death, Tang Mao changed the subject and said, you are now the chief judge of the Nangshan Tribunal. Does the Hangzhou Tribunal belong to us? We are serving the country. Tang Yu glared at Tang Mao and continued. There are only 2 of us here, and there are no outsiders. Don't be so serious. Tang Mao said indifferently. Who is serious? The tribunal is originally under the command of the country. As she said that, Tang Yu frowned slightly and said, Tang Mao, you are not allowed to have those thoughts that you shouldn't have, you know. Although Tang Yu felt that Tang Mao would not do anything that was not good for the country, she still had to say it. After all, power is something that makes people addicted and unable to extricate themselves. She didn't want Tang Mao to be deeply involved in it. What are you thinking? Don't you know me? Tang Mao looked at Tang Yu with a little displeasure and then said, do I look like the kind of person who is greedy for power? I'm just reminding you that there are too many people who have gone astray because of the struggle for power. The country today can't stand turmoil. Although the demons on land are very peaceful, this peace is more like the silence before the storm. On the seaside, the sea monsters are constantly attacking their territory. So, at this time, Tang Yu looked more serious. Don't worry, I have no interest in those. You know, I don't like these since I was a child. Otherwise I would go to the trial with you directly. Tang Mao shrugged. Tang Yu really didn't doubt what Tang Mao said. After all, he is really this kind of person. The reason why she said this is just because she has been working there for these years and the 2 of them have been apart for a long time. Ding, at this time, the phone rang suddenly. It was not a call, but a message. Tang Mao opened his phone and was stunned. He really didn't expect that so many acquaintances would come to this duel. Even Irene, who hadn't contacted him for a long time, had already arrived in Phenio City. The message was as follows. Tang Dazha, I heard that you were going to duel with Zhu Xiangshan. I happened to be free, so I came to join in the fun. Don't think about rejecting my arrival, because I've already arrived in Phenio City. I'll pop up at the right time, to show that I still exist. Looking at the last sentence, Tang Mao could guess that this perfect gun mount was about to explode. Speaking of which, after the end of the national government, he had almost no contact with foreign friends. Moreover, it seemed that in Irene's cognition, she was a serious girlfriend. Being ignored by his girlfriend was a matter of years, and being found at the door, Tang Mao was also a little panicked. This damn Zhu Xiangshan, I will definitely beat him to shit when the time comes. After all, isn't this Zhu Xiangshan's fault? If he hadn't been blindly arrogant, would he have caused himself so much trouble? Question mark. Ding, then, there was another message. Tang Mao clicked it, and almost fell to the ground. Mo Fan and the others in Athens didn't have time to come back, but this little hoof of Asherua came? Question mark. Tang Yu looked at Tang Mao puzzled and said, what's wrong? What's the matter? No, just a few friends came. I went to greet them. As he said, he got up and dressed. Tang Yu was even more confused when he heard this. He couldn't help but wonder who on earth could make Tang Mao greet her? Woman. Her sixth sense told her that it must be a romantic debt. Yes. Tang Yu asked, and they would meet again later. How dare he quibble? Huh. You. When I came, I didn't see you greet me. It seems that you are more important than me. Then I'll go and see. Tang Yu said, and wanted to go together. Let Tang Yu go with him. Is he thinking that he is not dying fast enough? Ahem. If you say so, then I won't go. After all, you are the most important one. Tang Mao responded very seriously. In response, Tang Yu just rolled her eyes. If she was the most important person, would Tang Mao still be so philanthropic? Really, you will always be the first in my heart. Seeing this, Tang Mao said again. Tell me, who is the little hoof that came? Is it the little princess of the Jiang family? Tang Yu asked in a calm voice. Tang Mao shook his head. Could it be the girl from the Mu family? Tang Mao shook his head again. The one from the AI family? No, that little girl seems to have come with her brother. So, who are you going to pick up? Tang Yu looked at Tang Mao in confusion. Although Tang Yu didn't guess correctly, he was really wondering, when did Tang Yu know so clearly? Not from China at this time. Lies and sophistry are obviously inappropriate. Moreover, judging from the few people Tang Yu mentioned, it is obvious that they know everything about him. How dare he lie and sophistry? Question mark. Chapter 686 Asherua and Irene. Tang Mao's voice was not very loud, but Tang Yu still heard it clearly. You are really capable. You really make your sister proud. Tang Yu said with a smile. Of course, if she hadn't been pinching her soft flesh, perhaps this smile would be quite lethal. After pinching Tang Mao for a while, Tang Yu let him go. After all, it was already the day of the duel with Zhu Xiangshan, and she didn't want to affect him because of these little things. Besides, more debts are less worrying. As far as she knew about her so-called sisters, there were already so many. Why would she care about more? Anyway, Tang Mao still had some ideas in his mind. At least he didn't bring any woman other than Muningsu to her. It can be said that in Tang Yu's place, Muningsu was the only one who was truly recognized. That was also her helplessness. Tang Mao was in charge of such a large family business, and she was also hardworking and well behaved. What reason did Tang Yu have to refuse? Seeing that Tang Yu neither took action nor spoke, Tang Mao was quite panicked. Okay, go ahead and handle it clearly. At least don't let them appear in front of me, otherwise I'm afraid I will explode. After saying that, Tang Yu stood up and walked out of the house. With a slight sigh of relief, Tang Mao moved in an instant and left the house, appearing outside the villa area of Yuxunyu City Mountain Villa. The patrolling mages guarding here were all shocked to see Tang Mao's sudden appearance. However, before they could say anything, Tang Mao was no longer there. After 2 instants of movement, Tang Mao came directly to the junction of Yuxunyu City and Phenio City. Although Phenio City has a large part of his power, Phenio City is not named Tang after all. So Phenio City is still Phenio City, and Yuxunyu City is Yuxunyu City. And when he came here, it happened that Asherua and Irene came over together, talking and laughing. This is quite outrageous. Even if Phenio City is not big and the airport is not big, it is not so easy for the two women to meet each other, right? Tang Mao saw them, and they naturally saw Tang Mao. If only one person came, he would have to go up and give a hug, but there were two of them, so hugging together would definitely not work. Did you come together? No, we met at the Phenio City airport. However, the head of the Tang family is so generous that even Grand Duke Irene came to support us in person. Ashurua looked at Tang Mao, who was really honest and motionless, and felt a little funny in her heart. It seems that the gangster has to be quiet. Irene smiled, then glanced at Tang Mao, and then looked at Ashurua and said, "This person almost forgot about me after the national government competition. If I don't come to see her again, I'm afraid I will be forgotten. But you, the candidate for the goddess, how come you have time to come here?" It seemed that they were having a good time before. Suddenly, it seemed that there was a change. Tang Mao stood there, without any intention of interrupting. Women are such creatures that are too hard to understand. I, as a candidate, have no support, no connections, and I'm almost dead from idleness all day long. I heard that there is a competition for the strongest youth in the world here, so I came to take a look. Ashurua responded. Irene curled her lips and said, "The strongest in the world, not necessarily. There are so many young people in this world. Someone just won the first place in the government. This girl wanted to make trouble at first glance." Tang Mao said at this time, "Since you are here, are you going to wait here until the duel day to go in?" After saying that, Tang Mao made way and made a gesture of invitation. The two women were naturally not here to see the scenery. They were actually quite curious about this Yuxu city. They were curious about what Tang Mao, a person with no background, could achieve by establishing a family. However, after the two women walked through the new city area and walked towards the villa, they were slightly stunned. It's not that they have never seen the world, nor have they seen a larger territory than this one. It's just that what surprised them was how his family developed in just a few years. It can be said that the Tang family's territory nowadays is almost not like a newly established clan. It feels like an old family. Moreover, along the way, there were batches of patrol mages. The two of them couldn't help but be a little curious. There were so many patrol mages in just one urban area. How many mages would be invested in the territory of the back mountain and the other two sides? The key is how a clan that has been established for a long time in Yuxu City can support such a large expenditure. These mages are working for free, which is absolutely impossible. After all, there is no free lunch in this world. Ashurua is okay. Although she has never been here, she has heard about the things here. Like Irene, in her subconscious, Tang Mao's family is half the size of a small town, which is already very good. But a whole town, or even a small city with a back mountain, is this territory too big? Tang Mao, what fortune have you made in the past few years? Irene stopped and asked when she walked to the villa area of the mountain villa. What are you talking about? The construction here is something that a small family can afford. As the heir to be of their family, Irene knew a lot about this, so he was a little curious. Did Tang Mao only see the present? Wasn't he going to develop in the future? This area outside Phenio City was given to me by the country. As for the construction here, there are naturally some businessmen who invested in it. If they want to live here, they certainly can't stay for nothing. I provide them with protection and extract some profits. Moreover, I have two mines alone. Tang Mao told him all the income he knew, and he was a little curious about how much the output was this year. Of course, he would definitely not think about this at the moment, and he was not interested in these. With a lot of income, the expenditure is naturally not small. After all, there are many people in Yuxu City. These are things that Muningsu should worry about. Then there are so many patrol teams in your city. What about the other three directions? Irene continued. The three sides don't need patrol mages, and compared to the place we are entering, the other three directions are extremely safe. Moreover, there are even more patrol troops on the three sides than in front. Tang Mao smiled and said. Chatting all the way, the three of them have arrived at the gate of the villa. Tang Mao said again, okay, I'll take you to where you live first, and then I'll take you two to walk around and you'll know. Then I wonder where you are going to arrange us. Asha, who had been eating melons quietly without saying a word all the way, suddenly asked. Of course it's the best room in Yuxunyu City. Tang Mao replied. Is it Muningsu's room? Asha said again. Don't make a fuss. Speaking of which, is this your family or Muningsu's family? Seeing Asha mention Muningsu, Irene also asked. During the national government competition, this bastard looked so devoted that Irene was blinded. After so much time, Irene, who would pay attention to his movements, naturally guessed that the relationship between Tang Mao and Muningsu was definitely not simple. If they say that the two of them are fine, then there must be something fishy going on. Chapter 687 is updated for the new leader. I thought that this dead fox Asha had calmed down, but who knew that she would suddenly attack me. Looking at the woman's charming smile, Tang Mao couldn't tell that she was doing it on purpose. She is helping me take care of it. People are already here. Even if he is eloquent, he can't argue. Then what is your relationship? Irene stared at Tang Mao and said. See if you are satisfied with the house you live in. This is already the best room in Yuxunyu City. He didn't mean to reply to this kind of question. In fact, it is obviously not important to reply or not. Irene is not a fool. He changed the subject and didn't answer her directly. Didn't he tell her the answer? Irene once thought that if Tang Mao dared to betray her feelings, she would never see him or contact him in this life. However, since they parted in Venice, Tang Mao has not contacted her for a long time. Well, Irene was very angry at first, and she also thought about ignoring him. But feelings are something that people can't control at all. At least she couldn't control her emotions. From the initial indifference to the later expectation that he would contact her, she had to take the initiative to find her now. So, seeing him being so perfunctory, Irene didn't want to pursue it. Some things are better to be clear in your heart. If you really say it thoroughly, it will not be good for anyone. She didn't want to lose him, so she could choose to pretend not to know. It's okay. But she is not a woman who is good at hiding her emotions. She is obviously not in a good mood at the moment. And Asha looked at Tang Mao meaningfully, and then said, then I will live next to it. If I'm bored, at least there is someone to talk to. Tang Mao really didn't mean to arrange her here. It's been a long time since I saw Irene, and I should accompany her. This simple British girl came from afar. How can I not let her feel the warmth? But this damn fox hoof is obviously here to make trouble. Exclamation mark. This room is the only good one here. Why don't I take you to other floors? Tang Mao looked at Asha and said. No, I'm not that picky. Even though Tang Mao's meaning was very clear, the fox didn't buy it at all. In the end, the two women lived in two houses here respectively. Originally, they wanted to have a good time with Irene, but now it seems that tonight will be another night of pain. After settling the two of them, Tang Mao went to see Ai Jiangtu and others who came here. There wouldn't be so many troubles with them. Not to mention whether they need to arrange it themselves. Muningsu can easily handle it. As for Jiang Shaoxu, the little fox, he came here to eat, drink and sleep after just a few days of going home. You damn scum, you are having a lot of fun. Are you busy tonight? Just when she was enjoying the breeze, she happened to see Tang Mao taking Asha and Irene to the other side of the residence. Irene, a girl with a low EQ, can be sure that she has been fooled by this scumbag. Otherwise, how could a great Duke of England, the future heir of the family, come here privately? As for Asha, a woman who is even more charming and seductive than herself, there is no need to think about it. She knows very well what Tang Mao likes about her. So she knows even more clearly that there is definitely something going on between them and Asha. But besides being unhappy, Jiang Shaoxu looks like he is trying to stir up trouble. With so many old lovers coming, this guy will have to run around tonight, right? Tang Mao's mouth twitched slightly, and he looked at Jiang Shaoxu and said, we are all ordinary friends. Don't think too much. You and I are also ordinary friends. Have you pressed me under you less often? Jiang Shaoxu rolled his eyes at him and said coquettishly, ahem. The scene was somewhat awkward. Just then, Zhao Linglin came with a small notebook. Tang Mao immediately said, well, the little cutie is here. I'll go and entertain her. If you want to run away, just say you want to run away. Don't talk about Ling Ling. She knows more about Yuxunyu City than you do. Speaking of which, Tang Mao really only knew a general idea of Yuxunyu City. He had never set foot in many places. Ling Ling and Jiang Shaoxu were just wandering around the city and the nearby forests. Tang Mao would not complain to her about this. After all, he was just looking for an excuse to leave. After saying hello to AI Jiangtu, Jiangyu, Guanyu, and Nanju, he left directly. He did not go to greet Ling Ling. Just like Jiang Shaoxu said, who in the whole Yuxunyu city and the villa area did not know this girl. As soon as he came out, he ran to the coastline. Staying at home is really too helpless. It's true that you feel happy before, but you worry about it afterwards. Today's situation is better than he expected. At least these women are from big families, and there is no tiger girl like Liuru. Otherwise, he is not afraid of embarrassment, but it is not a good influence on them. At the coastline of Phenio City, nowadays, there are many large trees growing in the water everywhere in the sea area. Of course, the reason why these trees can grow so much is because of the help of some plant mages every day. The sea battlefield in Phenio City was also greatly helped by these trees in the sea, which helped some mages who were not good at sea battles. With the leverage point, the sea monsters were naturally not so powerful and invincible. Moreover, because these trees were too dense, Muningsu also joined the municipal government here to find some powerful construction mages. Many watchtowers were built on these big trees. There were naturally mages on duty on each tower, and some demon detectors were also connected. Of course, these things were obtained from Xiao Zheng. It can be said that his reputation is extremely high now, and he can do so naturally without some help from Tang Mao. Although Xiao Zheng's current power makes many people jealous, let's not talk about power or not. At least what Xiao Zheng is doing now is almost all contributing to the country. As for what will happen to him in the future, when his power becomes stronger, that is not something Tang Mao should worry about. He only knew that, while helping Xiao Zheng increase his reputation, Yuxunyu City also received a lot of help in certain areas. In this world, no one will choose to help anyone for free. There are causes and effects. Speaking of which, since the Battle of the Japanese Volcanic Islands, Xiao Zheng told him that the arrogant Sulu was pulled down. Now he has become the chief inspector of the Asian Magic Association. Although he is very powerful in name, everyone knows that he is going to step down. As for the new chief and the positions under the chief, who will replace them, these are not what Tang Mao cares about. As long as the other party does not come to make trouble with him, it doesn't matter who he loves. Chapter 688 Munigio's Worry. Normally, there are always a few sea monsters that attack from time to time in this sea area. However, Tang Mao wandered around here for half an hour, but he didn't even meet a sea monster to kill time. The mages patrolling the seashore, whether they belonged to Phenio City or Yuxunyu City, thought that some big enemy had come after seeing Tang Mao. After all, the one who could make Tang Mao come in person must be a sea monster of at least one tribe, right? There was no other way. Tang Mao could only leave from the coastline. He couldn't kill his way into the deep sea, looking for the sea monster's nest and wipe them out. After returning to the city, he didn't rush back to the villa. The people who usually miss each other in the dead of night are all gathered together at once, and it's not fragrant in an instant. Moreover, he is almost the kind of fuse. If someone quarrels with someone else, wouldn't he be asking for trouble? So, he waited to go back at night. Speaking of which, Irene is still so perfect. Maybe she is not the biggest, but her height combined with her plump and exquisite body makes her the best among the women he knows. Of course, a slightly mature woman like Brancy is an exception. For example, Brancy, even the figure of the first wife is a little backward. Thinking of Brancy, Tang Mao thought of Hidi. Since the farewell at the Parthenon, she has hardly contacted herself. Tang Mao, what are you doing here? Just when Tang Mao was thinking, a familiar voice came from behind. Of course I'm waiting for you. Haha. Why don't I believe it? Long time no see. I wonder what Miss Mew has been busy with recently. Tang Mao looked back at Munigio, who had not seen her for a long time, and it seemed that this girl had also matured a lot. Although she was also very good, I don't know why. How do I feel? that she is about to reach a new peak. Seeing that Tang Mao was still the same, Mu Nijio said helplessly, "Can you please stop staring at me every time you see me?" Ahem. Tang Mao was a little embarrassed when she was pointed out directly, but this girl really didn't have the shyness of a little girl when she was with him. She could say anything directly. "Isn't this just to see if you haven't eaten or slept well recently because you missed me? Why would I miss you, you stinky scumbag?" Mu Nijio snorted lightly and then said, "You and Zhu Xiangshan's fight seems to have attracted the attention of many forces. Moreover, I heard that Zhu Xiangshan is very strong. He is a student of the national government in the previous session. Although he is not very famous in China, he is still very famous internationally. Are you worried about me?" Tang Mao asked back. "Who is worried about you? It would be better if you were beaten to death." "Really?" Tang Mao said as he approached. Seeing Tang Mao, who was so close, and staring at her, Mu Nijio stepped back slightly, turned her head and looked away, and then said, "Are you bored? The fight between Zhu Xiangshan and I is naturally 9 wins and 1 loss." Tang Mao shrugged and said confidently, "Ah." Mu Nijio was slightly stunned, and then said with some concern, "Then why did you make an appointment with him?" Mu Nijio obviously misunderstood, but when Tang Mao was about to speak, she heard her say again, "Fortunately, this matter has been widely publicized, and you and Zhu Xiangshan are not the same age. Even if you really lose, it's nothing. On that day, there will definitely be many international bigwigs coming. Even if Zhu Xiangshan is hostile to you, I believe he dare not do anything to you." Listening to what Mu Nijio said, although I know that she is worried about me, but isn't this too contemptuous? Am I so unbearable? Exclamation mark. Isn't it just Zhu Xiangshan? Even if his old man comes, I'm not afraid. Okay. Then, Tang Mao explained. "No, Jiao Jiao, I said 9 wins and 1 loss. It's my 9 wins. Ah." Mu Nijio was stunned again. Although Tang Mao's strength is very strong, who is not a leader among his peers these days, the most important thing is what Mu Nijio just said. Zhu Xiangshan is much older than Tang Mao, and their Zhu family still has a very high status in the international arena. The resources he got are even more unimaginable. It can be said that Zhu Jiming is completely incomparable to Zhu Xiangshan. Even if she is willing to believe Tang Mao, Mu Nijio still feels a little unreal. "And I haven't seen each other for too long. You may not know your man's current strength." Tang Mao smiled and continued, "Don't say Zhu Xiangshan. Even if the old men in his family come out, they may not be my opponents. These days, who can't be the first person under the forbidden spell? If he really gets angry, he will have to stand aside for the forbidden spell." The reason why he didn't say 10 wins and 0 losses is just his own low profile. "So what is your current strength?" Mu Nijio asked blankly. "Except for the summoning system, which has not yet reached the super level, the rest of the magic systems have barely reached the super level." Tang Mao responded lightly. "Goodbye, sorry to bother you." When she came, Mu Nijio was quite worried about Tang Mao. However, after hearing him talk about his strength, Mu Nijio suddenly felt that she was obviously overthinking. Slightly embarrassed, she naturally turned around and left. Otherwise, it would seem that she was too worried about him. You know, she had originally agreed to come with AI-22, but she came first. Can he let Mu Nijio leave? Of course it was impossible. He reached out and hugged her from behind. "Don't make trouble. I have hardly stayed in China in the past few years. I either went to the demon world or went abroad. It's normal that you don't know." "Ah. Sister Mu, you didn't wait for me." When Mu Nijio was about to speak, a loud shout suddenly came from the front. AI-22 ran over, shaking her best breasts that no one could match. With such a small body, I really don't know how she could support this thing. Tang Mao felt a lot happier when he saw his beloved rabbit concubine. AI-22 may not have any great advantages except for the rabbit, but he had to admit that he felt very relaxed and happy when he was with this girl. Even though they hadn't met for such a long time, they still kept in touch the longest. Even on some lonely nights, AI-22 would satisfy Tang Mao's strange hobbies. AI-22 originally came for Mu Nijio, but who knew that Tang Mao was suddenly robbed? He hugged her and rubbed her hair. You are annoying. After being picked up, AI22 said shyly. Chapter 689 almost all arrived. Big Rabbit, did you miss me? After rubbing for a while, Tangmao looked up at AI22 who was held by him and asked. I did. Compared with Munijiro, AI22 was much more honest. Where did you miss me? Tangmao asked. His hand had unconsciously jumped over the block and placed it where it should be. AI22 was already used to his operation. You dead man, just ask me if I miss you. Then did you miss me? Yes. Tangmao responded immediately. Bullshit. If I didn't look for you, you would never have thought of someone like me at all, right? Big Rabbit is just simple, but not brainless. Tangmao, this damn thing, has time to miss her? The forgiveness had almost pressed down on me to the point of suffocation. Are you going to kill Sha and Chat? Although this is a fact, everyone hasn't seen each other for a long time. How boring is this? Then let's not talk about this. The Big Rabbit responded sympathetically, then left Tangmao's arms, took his hand away, and then said, the weather is cold. Should I send you a few hats? I really miss you. What do you want me to say to make you believe it? Hearing this, Tangmao immediately changed his words and added, you also know that I have been either in the demon world or in the demon world these years. I have almost no time to use my mobile phone, otherwise how could I bear not to contact you for so long? While speaking, Tangmao pulled the two of them into his arms with one hand each, and the feeling of hugging them left and right was so wonderful. Humph. Seeing that AI22 was full of dissatisfaction, he smiled and explained again. It's not to mention that the Big Rabbit is really an impulsive type, almost more than himself. So, at this time, of course, he went along with her. Munijiro smiled softly when she saw this. It seems that the two have always been like this, and everything seems to have returned to the way it was when they were just in college. But soon she shook her head again. This is obviously very different. When I was in college, even if AI22 took advantage of Tangmao, I would not let him do whatever he wanted. Moreover, at that time, whether it was morning or night, this scum was by my side. But now, everything has changed. After chatting with Munijiro and AI22 for a while, the three of them walked back to the villa together. Speaking of which, almost all the women who had a relationship with me have arrived, right? Only Mochizuki Chiksen did not come, because the sea area of Shuangshao Pavilion was unstable recently, and Hidi and Branki did not come, because of that incident. This is the scene he wants to see the most, and it is also the scene he least wants to see. But no matter what, things have come to this, whether he wants to or not. After settling Munijiro and AI22 down, Tangmao hid in the back mountain. Otherwise, staying here, who asked to accompany him for a walk or something, could be a disaster. Compared with the noise in the villa, where people come and go, the place where Yushishi lives in the back mountain is much quieter. Here, there is only Yushishi herself. Even Zio Nehu, Apis and Zio Fengji don't know where they went. After learning the reason why Tangmao came, Yushishi sneered mercilessly. Now you know you are worried. You are always flirting with women. You deserve it. You know that dad is very loving. Why are you still sticking to him? Tangmao asked back. When Yushishi heard this, she immediately thought of what happened in the lake that day. You bastard. Did I stick to you? Yushishi said angrily. She didn't mean to get involved at all. After hearing her complaining tone, Tangmao remembered that it seemed that Yushishi was not really fooled. It's been so long, and I haven't seen you dissatisfied. It was because of this that Tangmao was even more puzzled. If you don't want to, shouldn't you leave? Then it would be like this now, patting your butt and immediately understanding what he meant. Yushishi laughed at herself and said, where can I go again? Hearing her say this, it seems that she is really not a human being. Although she has not been a human being for many years, she still feels guilty. Feeling guilty now? Seeing Tangmao fall into silence, Yushishi curled her lips and said. Tangmao nodded and said, a little bit. The women who have relationships with me are all willing. Then how are you going to compensate me? Yushishi was indeed very uncomfortable at first, but as time went by, she no longer had those thoughts. It can be said that she was slept with without knowing it. The most important thing is that there are many sisters who are fighting together, and they are used to it. Looking back now, it's just a simple complaint. After all, that incident has caused some shadows on her. Then don't think about it. I'm so poor that I'm the only one left. Tang Mao spread his hands and said, Yuxu New City is quite wealthy, but that was earned by Muningsu with great difficulty. He can't take out the money to please Yushishi, right? I'm not a materialistic woman. Besides, although you're a jerk, I can live a very easy life in Yuxu New City because of you. The green moths that keep me company finally have a safe environment to grow up in. So, I don't blame you, Yushishi continued. I think I can give you more. As soon as Yushishi finished speaking, Tang Mao gave the best reward. How could you mess it up? An hour later, Yushishi looked at Tang Mao in astonishment and said, Isn't this the best compensation for you? Tang Mao replied softly, I do still expect to accompany you Moth Phoenix for a lifetime. Yushishi naturally couldn't accompany you Moth Phoenix for a lifetime. After all, totems belong to immortal creatures. But she is not. Although there is some Moth Phoenix blood in her body, she is still a human after all. The lifespan may be longer than some magicians. Seeing that she didn't speak, Tang Mao continued, so, you can have a descendant, let him get familiar with the Moon Moth Phoenix from an early age, and become its next generation guardian. Isn't that great? She was still quite uncomfortable at first, because she was not ready yet. But after thinking about it carefully, she really felt that what Tang Mao said seemed to make some sense. It was impossible for her to protect the Moon Moth Phoenix for the rest of her life, and she was helped to survive by the Moon Moth Phoenix, so if she was too old to protect it, she really hoped to have a kind-hearted guardian to protect the Moon Moth Phoenix. She used to be very entangled about where to find one, but after hearing what Tang Mao said, wouldn't the one she had trained since childhood be the best and most suitable? Thinking of this, Yushishi turned over. She felt that she could ask for more, not for happiness, but simply for the protection of the Moon Moth Phoenix. Chapter 690, The Day of Duel. Originally, Tang Mao was here to comfort Yushishi, but who knew that this woman would be so crazy after she figured it out. I came here to hide away for some peace and quiet, but my waist was almost broken. Looking at the sky, the sun had already set, and there were only 5 days left before I could beat Zhu Xiangshan up. Tang Mao really wanted this bastard to come to Yuxu New City immediately. My waist was so seriously injured, and he must have a big reason. The next day, Tang Mao woke up in the morning and was pulled to a fighting venue by Irene. Honey, what are you going to do? Looking at Irene's serious look, he was a little puzzled. It was as if someone had stimulated her? Question mark? Otherwise, why would she come here so early in the morning? Fight with me? Why? He was even more confused when he heard that she was going to fight. Let me see your strength. Irene saw that Tang Mao had no intention of fighting at all, so she had to continue. After hearing what she said, Tang Mao understood a little bit. Maybe this girl had also done some research on Zhu Xiangshan, right? And she might feel like Munujiro, that she is not as good as Zhu Xiangshan? Question mark? But even if she feels this way, there is no need to compare herself with her. So how strong is she? Of course, Tang Mao would not say such hurtful words. Then come on, but don't be too surprised. After saying that, Tang Mao's eyes turned fiery red, and then the fire element began to gather here. Since it has contained the totem origin of Kinyuan, it has finally been perfectly integrated into a new fire, and it is also the flame of the forbidden world of heaven. When it was in Xiangshan, it had not yet fully completed its effect, but only enhanced its power. But at this moment, it has evolved perfectly. As the domain unfolded, Tang Mao smiled and said, you can attack now. Irene looked at Tang Mao in a daze, with beads of sweat falling from her head from time to time. She was not afraid, but for some reason, it suddenly became extremely hot here. Even though she was already a superclass magician, she felt that she could not resist the temperature. This as for his fire system, Irene's memory only remained during the national government competition. At that time, his fire system was also very powerful, but it was definitely not as powerful as it is now. And for some reason, I couldn't even use my water system. Tang Mao explained, my fire system now has a heavenly seed, and it is a heavenly seed with a forbidden realm. In my domain, whether it is ice or water, this kind of magic that restrains fire magic will ban the power of spirit seeds and soul seeds. Your water system is now just the most ordinary water. Okay, no need to fight at the moment. When Tang Mao's domain was opened, this battle actually seemed meaningless. Heavenly seed with a forbidden realm. This was something she accidentally heard the patriarch of the family mention. Even the patriarch of the family has never owned such a rare item. This is truly priceless. Heavenly seeds can also be made, but they are only pseudo-heavenly seeds, and the forbidden realm does not exist at all. Why, don't you think Zhu Xiangshan is a piece of cake now? Tang Mao asked with a smile, after dispersing the flames. After the fire area dissipated, Irene took a long time to barely disperse the heat. Looking at Tang Mao, she said, "What have you experienced in these years?" If Tang Mao was lucky enough to get a heavenly seed sitting in Yuxunyu City, she would never believe it. To get such a powerful flame, Tang Mao's experience must not be easy. It was to look for totem beasts, and went to some places that few people set foot on. I didn't contact you, because the place I was in was almost the kind that could not use communication equipment. Even if I just simply forgot, but the explanation and attitude that should be given, shouldn't it be there? Isn't it just an attitude issue that she wants? Sure enough, after he explained, Irene's face changed significantly. Whether it was her own psychological comfort or something else, it was always developing in a good direction. After the two left the fighting field, Tang Mao took Irene to the place where the black snake was. He said he would take her for a walk, but in fact, he just wanted to find a place to talk about life. It was the first time for Irene to feel the joy of playing in the wild. At first, she refused, but the long period of emptiness made her unconsciously fall in love with the joy of playing in the wild. After all, this kind of stimulation cannot be experienced at home. Irene is not a Chinese, and she does not have the shame of Chinese girls. She completely enjoys this happy time. Because they haven't seen each other for a long time, Tang Mao stayed here with her until the day of the decisive battle. The back door was also opened. The day of the decisive battle arrived, and the foot of the mountain was already crowded from an unknown time. As for the city, it felt even more crowded. As the battle of the first young man, it naturally attracted a lot of people. Of course, not everyone can witness it in person, but as long as they come to Yuxunyu City today, there are still special broadcasters everywhere in the city. Although they can't watch it live, there are still many people who come to watch it live. Most people like to watch magic duels. The ban of the Magic Association has prevented many people from having the opportunity. They can only have some private competitions for a few powerful and wealthy people to appreciate. The internationally agreed superclass magic duel between Tang Mao and Zhu Xiangshan is really the first in recent years. Tang Mao and Zhu Xiangshan are both young people. In theory, youth duels are allowed. The main reason is that their levels are too high, and the magic destructive power caused is difficult to control. Therefore, this battle is absolutely impossible to be held in Yuxunyu City or Mountain Villa, which is closer to the city. It is not suitable to fight in the Anji. The deputy mayor of Asuka Base City made a good choice, which is to arrange this battle on the sea. Asuka Sea War City itself is left with a piece of wreckage and ruins left by the destruction of the sea monster. The foundation is unstable, and this place is naturally the best place to fight. Superclass magic duel. By the way, the sea building of Asuka Old War City was demolished. I don't know how much manpower this can save for the city. Tang Mao was originally quite weak, but Irene didn't know where she got the secret recipe from. After 3 days of conditioning, she was no longer weak, but felt as strong as an ox. Of course, Irene also said that this kind of thing cannot be used a second time, otherwise it will be harmful to the body instead of beneficial, and he naturally knew this. When Tang Mao arrived at the battlefield of the floating reef hunting, he saw Zhu Xiangshan with an attitude of winning for sure, showing off his power there. Tang Mao silently complained in his heart, retarded. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 691 Pre-War Talk. The battle between the two was actually only taken seriously by Zhu Xiangshan. For Tang Mao, it was just a matter of a few rounds. But looking at his current state, Tang Mao felt that it might not be impossible to play with him. After all, because of this bastard, several girls were staring at him. He disappeared for a few days, and the girls just thought he was in seclusion. But now? Question mark? Is this a seclusion? They all saw him coming out of the back mountain with a big foreign horse. Fortunately, his waist is not weak now. Otherwise, Tang Mao felt that tonight's celebration banquet would probably be a deadly night. After the deputy mayor gave an opening speech, Tang Mao and Zhu Xiangshan were allowed to go on stage. As a witness, I hope that the two young and promising magicians can make friends with martial arts and stop at the right time. After the deputy mayor's speech, he looked at the two and said, "Do you have anything to say to each other? Stop talking nonsense, just start. It's just a bully. What's there to say?" Tang Mao waved his hand. Before, everyone just saw Zhu Xiangshan being arrogant and crazy, but after hearing what Tang Mao said, everyone was stunned. Zhu Xiangshan's face instantly turned a little livid when he heard this. Goddamn bullying. He really has injured it for long enough. At this time, he has been thinking silently that no matter who is watching or what, Tang Mao must be disabled. The position of Ai Jiangtu and others in the government team. After hearing Tang Mao's first sentence, they were a little dumbfounded. Although Zhu Xiangshan is not very famous in China, he has a great reputation internationally. Moreover, the Magic Association said that he is a leader among the young people, so he is naturally not too bad. Why does he feel like a weak chicken in Tang Mao's mouth? After learning about the fight between Tang Mao and him, Ai Jiangtu also had some understanding of Zhu Xiangshan. Among his peers, it is estimated that Tang Mao is the only one who dares to look down on each other like this, right? Although Zhu Jiming is a loser, Zhu Xiangshan is really strong. However, he may not be able to handle a non-human like Tang Mao. Guan Yu had a good relationship with Zhu Jiming before. He also had some understanding of the Zhu family. Zhu Xiangshan was really strong. But during the trip to Xianshan, Tang Mao's performance was too shocking. Even though he was unwilling to fall behind, he still had self-knowledge. Guan Yu, I didn't expect you to recognize the reality. Jiang Yu smiled. At this time, Tang Mao had already asked about Zhu Xiangshan's family members and whether they were alive. To be honest, it was indeed a bit bad to say this with his current reputation, but Tang Mao, who would care about this? He has never valued reputation and face. Otherwise, Zhu Xiangshan did so many things behind Tang Mao's back to ruin his reputation. How could he not mind at all? He didn't even want to save his reputation. Ahem, you two, your voices are amplified. Can you say something more positive? After all, your duel is of great concern to the International Magic Association. The deputy mayor reminded them in a low voice with a dark face. He did not expect that the two would actually quarrel with each other. Is this positive energy? The Magic Association advertised that it was a friendly competition between two young mages. Okay. Isn't this a slap in the face? Tang Mao, you have done so many shameful things, and you are still claiming to be the number one in the country all day long. I think your day is over today. After hearing what the deputy mayor said, Zhu Xiangshan suddenly pointed at Tang Mao and brought out the lines of the script he had originally arranged. You know, Zhu Xiangshan had spent a lot of effort to discredit Tang Mao before, and the people liked to watch the excitement. So Zhu Xiangshan was under the banner of fighting against shameless people, hypocrites, and fake strength. However, Tang Mao did not care about this matter at all. He glanced at Zhu Xiangshan, then at the deputy mayor, stretched out his hand to take his microphone, looked at all the audience who came here to watch the show, and said, to put it simply, I'm not a good person, nor am I an unforgivable criminal. If I see anyone pretending more than me in front of me, I will definitely beat him up. But kicking an old lady on the road, cheating for free food and drink, these childish tricks have nothing to do with me. But there is nothing I, Tang Mao, have done that I dare not admit. I didn't do it, no matter who says so, I will not admit it. In addition, I don't care whether any of you who come to watch the show are hired by Zhu Ziangshan. I only say one thing: if you dare to spread rumors about me, I will not let any of you go after I have tortured him. If you want to challenge me, you should be more open and above board. Don't be like this weakling who is afraid of my good reputation and has to do some tricks before fighting me. But is it useful? In the end, he is just a jumping clown. In the end, what a bullshit first youth. I'm the first person under the forbidden spell. Whoever is not convinced, no matter how old you are, just come and fight. After saying that, Tang Mao threw the microphone of the deputy mayor in his hand to him. The whole audience was silent. Not long ago, it was still noisy like a tsunami. Now the whole old battlefield could only hear the sound of flowing seawater. It can be said that it has completely fallen into silence at this time. Deathly silence. Even Tang Yu and the other sisters felt that Tang Mao was a little too pretentious. For example, the old guys of the Mu family were embarrassed to take action at first, but when he said that, didn't he give the other party a chance? Although the super level perfection is not a forbidden spell, the strength is real. However, although this pretense was a bit too inflated, at this moment, Tang Mao was definitely the most dazzling existence in their eyes. Regardless of whether he had the strength or not everyone dared to say such crazy words. The first person under the forbidden spell. There are countless people in the world, but how many forbidden spell mages are there? Excluding those people, he is the strongest. Several big leaders and council members of Felinaro Base City sat in their exclusive seats, and the fierce wind from the East China Sea blew on their faces. The bold council member whose hat was blown off forgot to tidy up his image. The deputy mayor's mouth could fit an island. The mayor trembled and asked the assistant next to him to give him oxygen to breathe. The assistant next to him was still looking at Tang Mao there like a wooden stake. Several council members representing the Magic Association couldn't say a word for a long time. The International Magic Association said that the fight between young people can be indulged a little bit. Nowadays, this era needs gunpowder, real strength and visual impact, but they didn't let him add fuel to the fire like this! Exclamation mark. This is a blatant provocation to all the superclass mages in the world. Chapter 692, Output Power of Intermediate Magic. The deputy mayor stood there trembling. His hair was a little messy in the wind. He looked at Mulin Sheng, who was also dumbfounded, and asked, "You, the head of the Tang family, don't you read the manuscript before speaking?" Mulin Sheng shook his head subconsciously. After all, when he took the manuscript to Tang Mao, it was thrown out directly. Well, what an arrogant boy. If I don't teach you some profound lessons today, you don't know how high the sky is and how thick the earth is. Zhu Ziangshan originally wanted to step on Tang Mao to increase his fame in the country and the fame of the Zhu family. Who knew that he would be stepped on at the beginning? The first person under the forbidden spell. He also wanted to say such arrogant words, but he obviously didn't have the courage. After all, it's not just those people sitting there who are paying attention to this battle. Even many bigwigs in the world are paying attention. It's so clear. If I were you, why would I still be here? I would have gone home to call my parents. Tang Mao curled his lips and said, originally, his arrogance would have been met with a barrage of criticism, but when they thought of what Tang Mao had just said, they thought that it would be better to wait until the two of them finished fighting before scolding him. After all, it was still unclear who would win or lose. Although Tang Mao was very arrogant, his actions also proved that he was definitely not a mediocre person. Both contestants, get ready. The deputy mayor saw that the two were still preparing to continue to fight each other and hurriedly spoke. Upon hearing this, Zhu Ziangshan walked in front of Tang Mao and performed the duel etiquette in a completely false way. This duel etiquette is more popular in Italy. No matter how much hatred you face, as long as your opponent duels with you openly, you must do so. Tang Mao spat when he saw this. Zhu Ziangshan, who had already exploded with anger, almost couldn't help but take action immediately. I have never seen such a guy who doesn't know etiquette. Seeing Tang Mao's provocation, the deputy mayor almost didn't want to talk anymore, turned around and left here to announce the start. Zhu Ziangshan's lungs were about to explode. He rushed towards Tang Mao like a madman. His whole body was filled with bloody savage light that only monsters have. This bloody savage light formed a red devil bull, and the horns reaching the sky reached a length of 7 or 8 meters. Seeing Zhu Xiangshan rushing like this, Tang Mao had no intention of understanding him at all. Just when he was about to hit Tang Mao, suddenly there was a very strong resistance, so that he couldn't move forward at all. Zhu Xiangshan took a closer look, and found that it was actually a silver wall. Question mark? And then, a pressure of 10,000 pounds appeared instantly. Zhu Xiangshan almost knelt down, because of an instability. That's it? Tang Mao glanced at Zhu Xiangshan, and had no interest in fighting at all. He was too weak. Boom. With a snap of his fingers, a thunderbolt suddenly descended, and hit Zhu Xiangshan's body. Zhu Xiangshan, who was originally well dressed, immediately became dusty, after being hit by this thunderbolt. Although this thunderbolt did not seriously injure him, this embarrassed appearance made many people understand that Tang Mao was really strong. Perhaps some weak people did not realize that Tang Mao had already made a move before, but those who had a little strength knew that, although he did not move his hands, he used space magic. Zhu Xiangshan was already furious, and at this time he almost fell into madness. Listening to him yelling, Tang Mao slapped him casually. This slap was covered with a strong force of space. It was obviously from a distance, but the next moment, Zhu Xiangshan was thrown out like a flying stone and hit the dilapidated building directly. Fierce Fist 9 Palaces. I don't know how long it has been since I used intermediate magic. It's rare that I have the interest, so Tang Mao hit the ground with one blow. The next moment, where Zhu Xiangshan was, a thick and strong pillar of fire suddenly shot up into the sky. The powerful impact of the magma almost made his already embarrassed appearance even more embarrassed. Well, not bad, not bad. It's quite burn resistant. Then I'll give you some more wind. Seeing that Zhu Xiangshan's clothes were damaged, and he changed into some magic tools, Tang Mao smiled with a hint of sarcasm. Then, a gust of wind floated. Wind played Cheyenne Luo. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Fire took advantage of the wind, and the flames, that had just weakened after the gust of wind, immediately ignited again. Now Tang Mao's fire system is definitely at the level of a near god. Even if it is only a mid-level magic, the damage is very effective for a super level mage. As for the actual effect, it is unknown. After all, he is not very clear whether there are gods in this world. Thunderbolt dancing. After the flames, Tang Mao landed another thunderbolt. The new magic tool that had just been replaced instantly had cracks again. It was as if Tang Mao could not use high level magic or super level magic and only used mid level magic. It was as if he was deliberately playing a trick on Zhu Xiangshan. But Zhu Xiangshan, who had a deep understanding of the situation, did not think so. Although he was insulted, and although this was indeed mid-level magic, it was as if he did not do any defense, and was just resisting it. In fact, he could not even find a chance to attack again. The members of the Magic Association, as well as the mayor and the deputy mayor, looked at the scene in front of them, and could hardly believe it. Tang Mao was only using mid-level magic, but Zhu Xiangshan was suppressed throughout the whole process. Before, Tang Mao said that he was a bully, and said that he was the #1 person under the forbidden spell. They thought it was a bit ridiculous. This kid was really a bit arrogant. But now, they unconsciously felt a sense of recognition? Question mark? As for the audience in the audience, they didn't want to say anything. Some people also felt that Zhu Xiangshan was just a name with a false reputation, and he was good looking but useless. Hey, that's it? Is this all you can do? You'd better yell daddy and get out of here while you're still alive. Otherwise, what you're going to experience next will definitely be the most painful first time in your life. Tang Mao sneered. Will he let Zhu Xiangshan go? Of course not. While he was talking, Zhu Xiangshan was surrounded by a very powerful space suppression. The reason why he said this was to tell Zhu Xiangshan that, if he thought about this arena, even if he wanted to admit defeat, he would not have the chance. He made himself so miserable these days. How could Tang Mao let him go so easily? A few intermediate magics at the beginning were simply a blow to the child's self-confidence. Since you are so ungrateful, don't blame me, your elder, for being rude. Seeing Zhu Xiangshan about to cry in anxiety, Tang Mao sneered. Chapter 693 Complete Destruction. Although Tang Mao was smiling at him and suddenly became polite, Zhu Xiangshan felt a deadly threat in his body and soul. The most terrifying thing was that he found that he couldn't even admit defeat. That's right, at the beginning of the battle, he already understood that he was not Tang Mao's opponent at all. It was also at this time that he understood. No wonder Tang Mao dared to be so arrogant. This guy is simply not a human being. If I remember correctly, when he was in Venice, he was just a high-level mage, right? But now he is so powerful that Zhu Xiangshan is desperate. Shadow Evil / Tang Mao, who was still teasing Zhu Xiangshan, saw that he was so scared that he was about to pee his pants and instantly lost interest. However, even if he was not interested in torturing him, of course he would not let him go. Since he dared to provoke him and made him so passive these days, if he didn't leave him some lifelong shadows, how could he be worthy of provoking him like this? With Tang Mao's soft call, the Lord of Shadow Evil emerged. With his appearance, this area was almost filled with an extreme dark attribute. On the seat of the counselor, Zhu Meng looked at the Shadow Evil Lord summoned by Tang Mao, and the whole person was almost dumbfounded. Just now, this kid said that he was the first person under the forbidden spell, and Zhu Meng thought he was floating. Even if the strength has become stronger, he can't be so arrogant. Among the superclass mages, there are many who are powerful enough to be world famous in a certain field. However, when he saw Tang Mao completely teasing Zhu Xiangshan, he felt that perhaps he was no longer an opponent. And when he saw the Shadow Evil Lord appear, even he felt a trembling of the soul. This kid is really getting more and more evil. Zhu Meng looked at the Shadow Evil Lord and said in shock. Perhaps what he just said was not a joke. Even I may not be his opponent. Hanji, who came all the way from the ancient capital, also shook his head and said, because the undead in the ancient capital have already set out to the underworld to start the war, he is naturally a lot freer. After learning about the youth fight between Tang Mao and Zhu Xiangshan, they naturally came to join in the fun. Although this excitement was completely one-sided, it was really exciting. Even without the demonic power, he was already so powerful. What would happen if the demon possessed him? Question mark? Stop it. Compared to Hanji and Zhu Meng's melon eating, Zhu Xiangshan's father Zhu Bo couldn't sit still. Those high-level and mid-level mages may not have seen the doorway, but these super-level mages can clearly sense the terrifying aura brought by the appearance of the Shadow Evil Lord. Although it is clear that Tang Mao must not dare to kill Zhu Xiangshan, the cost of this attack is probably also very great. Their Zhu family is rich, but it almost feels like there is no successor. Zhu Xiangshan is almost the only hope of the Zhu family. It doesn't matter if they lose the game, but if Tang Mao really gives Zhu Xiangshan some special skills, and Zhu Xiangshan is useless in the future, what future can their Zhu family talk about? So, while talking, Zhu Bo didn't care about many things, and rushed directly into the field. Tang Mao looked at Zhu Bo, who rushed there, and sneered. Tang Mao noticed this old guy when he just came. Even when he was bragging with Hanji and others, he was still very clear. Now that he noticed something was wrong, he thought about being shameless. How could there be such a beautiful thing in the world? At this time, the black blade of the Shadow Evil Lord had already chopped into Zhu Xiangshan's body. It directly merged into his body with one knife. All his defenses were almost useless in front of the Shadow Evil Lord. The Shadow Evil Lord is not a shrimp soldier, and he will not listen to anyone except Tang Mao. After the dark energy sank into Zhu Xiangshan's body, Zhu Xiangshan felt an unprecedented sense of fear. At the same time, his soul power was immediately severely damaged. The super level cultivation was even more eroded by the black magic. The several beast souls in his body also fled out of his body because of the invasion of this black energy. After seeing 4 spirits, 3 of which were at the monarch level, Tang Mao naturally accepted them all without hesitation. Zhu Xiangshan's star sea was corroded by darkness, and the souls of the cursed sacrifice scattered and fled, and were also collected by Tang Mao. Zhu Xiangshan was typically useless. Even from today, his proud strength almost dissipated by more than half, and his natural talent was completely melted away by the dark corrosion ability. When Zhu Bo was rushing over, Zhu Xiangshan was already staring at the sky with his eyes blank, as if he had lost consciousness. Question mark? Son. Seeing this scene, Zubo's eyes almost spit fire, and he was so angry that he stopped and looked at Tang Mao and said, "Young man, this competition is just a competition. Why are you so cruel to my son? Do you still have the law in your eyes? Are you TM brainwats?" Tang Mao looked at Zubo, who looked like a mentally retarded person, and said, "What a arrogant fellow. Just because he has some strength, he dares to do whatever he wants and disregards the law." Zubo resisted the urge to rush up and attack and continued to accuse. "If the law you are talking about is that I can't hurt him and he can provoke me at will and be cruel to me, then what's wrong with ignoring it?" Tang Mao didn't care about his words at all. "Members of the parliament, the mayor of Phenio City, can you tolerate such a lunatic?" Zubo looked at the place where ZHU Meng and others were behind him and asked loudly. Looking at Zubo, who was eating in an ugly manner, Hanji stood up and said, "Zubo, don't be so senior. It's your son who challenged you to a fight, and it's also your son who publicized it. If you lose, you lose, and injuries are inevitable in magic battles. Instead of wasting time here, you might as well take your son back for treatment." Hanji was definitely the one who supported Tang Mao the most among the Chinese bigwigs. After all, he owed it to him for the matter of the ancient capital. Tang Mao helped him fulfill his responsibilities. Moreover, if he was the one standing in the fight between Zhu Xiangshan and Tang Mao, would he let Tang Mao go? Upon hearing this, Zubo's eyes almost turned red, and even Hanji started to hate him. After all, it was this old guy who screwed over their Zhu family in Venice, causing his sister to have to resign. The secretary beside the Grand Speaker. It doesn't sound very good, but his sister is definitely the most important for the development of the Zhu family's power in the country, and she just disappeared like that. Now, he is here to mess things up again, making Zubo almost want to kill him and Tang Mao together. However, Hanji was right about one thing. If he takes his son for treatment now, there may be hope. The most important thing is that his behavior just now was already a bit embarrassing. The most ridiculous thing is that he has lost such a big person, but none of these people support him. Just when Zubo was about to approach Zhu Xiangshan, Tang Mao suddenly appeared beside Zhu Xiangshan, and then, bang, stepped on his head, looked at Zubo and said, "Hey, old man, your son is still resisting. What are you doing here? Why do you want both father and son to come together?" Chapter 694. I beat my son, I apologize. Zubo watched Tang Mao step on Zhu Xiangshan's head, and he was so angry that his whole body was raging. However, before he could make a move, Tang Mao raised his foot and fell again. Bang! This kick was obviously much heavier than before, and even the foot was full of space power. No, please, don't kill him. Zubo, who just wanted to blame Tang Mao, softened instantly after seeing this scene. "Old man, did I kill him? Didn't I tell him not to humiliate himself at the beginning?" Tang Mao didn't mean to raise his foot, but he would naturally not indulge this old guy who was looking for trouble. It would be the stupidest thing to reason with these people. Moreover, he was not a local official, but a commoner. What should he be afraid of when others come to him to fight? It doesn't exist. A humble move would only make the other party worse. What do you want? Zubo was almost going crazy when he saw his son bleeding all over the ground, but how could he dare to act rashly at the moment? Your son immediately stood up and criticized me after he lost. Shouldn't he apologize? Tang Mao continued. Puff. Zubo spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard this. His son was beaten into such an idiotic state, and he actually had to apologize? Question mark? Tang Mao, don't go too far. Zubo said with red eyes and full of murderous intent. Bang. However, the most direct and effective way to respond to him was you. Just when Zubo was about to scold, he saw Tang Mao's foot raised again. He could only choke back his words, and then, watching Tang Mao bow and bow his head, he said with a raging anger in his heart, "I'm sorry. Hey, is this right? Anyway, your son has been beaten by me, so let's forget it." Tang Mao said, and kicked Zhu Xiangshan in front of Zubo. At this time, Zhu Xiangshan had completely fainted. Zubo didn't say anything nonsense, and immediately hugged Zhu Xiangshan and left here. It's not that he didn't want to leave some harsh words, but Zhu Xiangshan's condition was very bad. Especially the soul of the sacrifice was taken away by Tang Mao. If he didn't go back in time, it would be too late. Looking at Zubo leaving, Tang Mao's mouth corners slightly raised. He asked Zubo to apologize, but of course he didn't need this. For people like them, face is almost more important than anything else. This kind of humiliation is much more uncomfortable than beating him up. Moreover, there is a more important point. The reason why he intercepted Zubo and took people away before was nothing more than fearing that someone could cure him. But now, even the world's top healing wizard will be helpless. Zhu Xiangshan has been completely useless. From now on, he will be a superclass wizard who can only use high level magic. It can even be said that he is just a small fish that is a little stronger than an ordinary high level wizard. Moreover, it still requires an unknown number of rare treasures to make him such a small fish. In public, and under the attention of bigwigs from all walks of life, Tang Mao naturally couldn't openly kill him. The crowd of spectators were completely stunned at this moment. They were too low in realm to know what happened. They just saw a huge shadow appear, and then Zhu Xiangshan was useless. Then, Zhu Xiangshan was stepped on. It ended so hastily. It was promised to be a shocking battle. Who else is dissatisfied? I have time today, and I will play with you for a while. Zhu Xiangshan was solved in a few moves. Tang Mao felt a little sorry for making people prepare for so long in vain. After all, so many people came to see a shocking battle. But obviously, no one had the courage to stand up at this time. Zhu Xiangshan is famous in Asia. How could that name be false? It's not that he is weak, but that Tang Mao is too strong. The first person under the forbidden spell, at least for now, no one present refuted it. I don't know how many people have been looking forward to this great battle, and it's over just like that. If it weren't for the miserable look of Tang Mao being stepped on by Zhu Xiangshan at the end, some people would even think that they were playing a fake match, right? But no matter what, the battle is over. The parliamentarians from all over the country who came here to watch the game, or the bigwigs hidden in the crowd, all turned around and left after the game. Hanji, on the other hand, walked towards Tang Mao. Zhu Meng followed him. Seeing the two of them coming, Tang Mao immediately knew what they wanted to say. It's nothing more than being careful of the revenge of the Zhu family, and that the Zhu family is still very powerful internationally. Tang Mao, you are too careless. If you really cripple Zhu Xiangshan, it's simply a provocation to the holy city. You know, he is now a member of the holy city. It can be seen that Hanji is really worried about him. He said a lot in one breath, but in fact, it was nothing more than telling Tang Mao that the Zhu family might not end it, and would also use the power of the holy city. He was also persuading Tang Mao to be more obedient recently. After all, the holy city is not comparable to other forces. All the angels in the holy city are forbidden spell level figures. What's there to be afraid of? If they want to cause trouble for me, they can just use any name to mess with me. So it doesn't matter whether I behave myself or not. Tang Mao waved his hand nonchalantly and then said, but thank you very much, Mr. Han. He was not completely rude. Hanji had helped him more than once or twice. He could naturally say thank you politely. Boy, although what Mr. Han said seems to be alarmist, I can testify that it is true. You'd better stay in the country honestly recently, otherwise. Zhu Meng also persuaded. Okay, I get it. Two old men, do you want to go to my villa in Yuxunu City to sit down? Although it's a bit of a waste, there will still be a celebration banquet. Regardless of whether he was afraid or not, Tang Mao still accepted the kindness of the two. Then he took the opportunity to invite them. However, both Hanji and Zhu Meng had their own official duties, so they could not drink and brag with him here. At this time, the teenagers who came to watch the show also left the mountain with great dissatisfaction. As for the representatives of the Magic Association, they seemed to be reporting today's events to their superiors. This competition did not seem to have any motivational effect at all, because it was not a realm at all. Chapter 695 Tang Yu's Tolerance. Although Zhu Xiangshan was severely punished by him, and even his father was humiliated by him, it can be said that the damage to the reputation of their Zhu family in the country was almost recovered by Tang Mao today. But he still couldn't be happy. There was no way. The celebration dinner was the highlight in the evening. After all, the girls were not the crowd who came to eat melons. They would leave after the duel. Each of them had experienced many ups and downs. Who would be willing to leave after being empty for so long? Even Irene, who had eaten a lot in recent days, looked like she was still not satisfied. What made him more headache was that among so many women tonight, there must be a hostess. If Tang Yu was not here, it would be almost unnecessary to be so troublesome. After all, Mu Ningxu was the apparent controller here, but Tang Yu was also there. The first wife was the first wife, no matter who it was, she could not be compared. However, announcing this here was almost embarrassing Mu Ningxu. After all, it was still the fault of Zhu Xiangshan, the thief. If he hadn't asked for trouble, would he have encountered this problem? Wasn't that clearly arranged? It just happened that this sun thief disrupted the stability he had maintained for many years. It was because the dog day was taken away. Otherwise, Tang Mao felt that he had to increase his corrosive power. No matter what, he had to stay in a wheelchair for a few years. In the banquet hall of the villa at night, people were talking in groups of 3 or 2. Of course, Tang Mao was the one who talked the most tonight. Especially those who had just joined and made some contributions to Yuxu New City, all saw a bright future. However, the more embarrassing thing was naturally Tang Mao. Surrounded by a lot of beautiful women, I don't know how many people envy him. But at this moment, he was really in a big head. There was no way none of the people at this table were easy to mess with. They were Mu Ningxu, Asha Ruaya, Ai Lin, Mu Nijio, Ai Tutu, Jiang Shaoxu. Several girls sat in their seats, but no one spoke, and the atmosphere was awkward for a while. Fortunately, Liu Ru, the tiger girl, was watched by Liu Zhu. Otherwise, if there was a fuse, I don't know how I would die tonight. Congratulations on your victory. I have something to do, so I'll go back first. You guys chat. Mu Nijio was really uncomfortable sitting here. After all, she was completely pulled here by Tuta to join in the fun. She couldn't stand this awkward atmosphere, so she stood up and said. After she finished speaking, Mu Nijio was about to get up and leave, but Tuta held her back and said, Sister Mu, why are you in such a hurry? You're leaving without even eating a bite of food. She is a typical person who is not afraid of trouble. Of course, there is also the suspicion that she is deliberately looking for trouble for Tang Mao. Why are you all sitting here? Don't you want to eat? At this time, Tang Yu came over. Compared with this group of little girls, Tang Yu was a little more independent. After Tang Yu came over, she sat next to Tang Mao, a seat that had been empty before. This is what Mu Ningxu left for her. Aren't you going to introduce her to your sister? After Tang Yu sat down, she looked at Tang Mao and emphasized the word sister. Although Tang Mao felt a little tingling, she still had to solve the problem. She stood up and said, that's my childhood sweetheart and my fiancé, Tang Yu. After saying this, Tang Mao finally felt a little relieved. Of course, the faces of the women at the table changed drastically after hearing the word fiancé. Compared to them, Mu Ningxu was very calm, as if she had known it for a long time. Tang Yu didn't expect Tang Mao to introduce her like this. She rolled her eyes at him, then looked at the women and said, I think you all have some special relationship with this stinky man. I don't want to pursue these, or care about them. Today is his celebration party, and it is also the day for everyone to understand the truth. If you can't accept it, I think you should leave now. Compared to Tang Mao's hesitation, Tang Yu was very direct. Tang Mao looked at the women, and was relieved after they still didn't have any big emotional fluctuations. At least, there was no need to worry about that woman going crazy and using a wave of destruction magic. Hello, Sister Tang Yu. My name is Asha Ruaya, from Parthenon. Just after Tang Yu finished speaking, Asha Ruaya briefly introduced herself. The word sister seemed to acknowledge some facts. Although this kind of thing is not allowed in this era, as long as the man is good enough, what's wrong with it? She knows what she cares about, and what she likes. As Asha Ruaya spoke, someone took the lead, and it seemed that everything was no longer so difficult. Looking at them, each of them was as docile as a kitten. Tang Mao felt so unreal? Question mark? Well, why don't we communicate together tonight? People always take advantage of others. Looking at the women talking and laughing, Tang Mao proposed. However, as soon as he said this, Tang Yu kicked him. and signaled with her eyes, "Don't go too far, my patience is limited." Similarly, the other few were not easy to deal with, and they all looked like they were going to beat him up. But Jiang Shaoxu covered his mouth and laughed. After seeing that all the women were looking at her, Jiang Shaoxu said without hesitation, "He is just talking. Does he have the strength to communicate with us?" Tang Mao was very upset. It was because the whole woman had some overwhelming restraint, otherwise she would be dragged to practice alone in a minute. He didn't know that he was obviously very strong, but every time he cared with Jiang Shaoxu, he would still be completely abused, as if she had some profound skills. Unlike Jiang Shaoxu, in their eyes, this guy was like a pile driver without any emotions? Question mark? Of course, there is strength in numbers, so no one thought deeply about it. She doesn't look good, but she thinks beautifully, Mei Tutu said with a pout. Sister Tang Yu, I think you need to discipline him. As far as I know, there are more than just a few women who have had relationships with him. Ashiruya also said. Upon hearing this, Tang Yu turned her head and looked at Tang Mao. It was like a death stare. After all, this guy told me that almost everyone has arrived. Well, there are still one or two who haven't come yet. Tang Mao glared at Ashiruya and confessed. You Tang Yu, who had been patient for a long time, stood up directly. However, too many people were watching here, and she couldn't help but give Tang Mao face. After a moment, she sat down again, and then said, I'll settle the score with you later. Tang Mao was not afraid of this at all. After all, the most difficult time was so easy to get through. What else is there to be afraid of? At least, this is hundreds of times better than what I think in my heart. No matter what these arrogant women think in their hearts, as long as they don't make trouble in front of others, that is the best result. While they were chatting, Tang Mao was finally rescued by AI Jiangtu and several members of the government. Chapter 696 Pang Le arrives. Tang Mao, I know you are strong, but if you dare to bully my sister, I can't beat you, but my old man won't let you go. AI Jiangtu said in a low voice as he pulled Tang Mao with his arm around his shoulder and went to the seat of the Guofu team. Ahem. Old AI, you have to believe me, I really love her. Tang Mao was naturally not afraid of his grandfather. He was absolutely sincere to AI Tutu. Although his heart was a little scattered, that part was true, wasn't it enough? True love? AI Jiangtu stopped, took a sip of wine, and said directly and clearly, you don't deserve it. One person hooked up with so many girls, and it's still true love? God's true love. In this regard, Tang Mao had no intention of responding to anything. After walking to the seat of the Guofu team, he picked up the wine glass in his hand, and looked at the other people and said, come on, drink, don't go home, until you are drunk tonight. Changed to a whole bottle, what's the point of this small cup? AI Jiangtu said very unconvinced. Tang Mao's mouth twitched slightly. This brother-in-law probably wants to make him unable to stand up. Is he afraid that he will do something big tonight? However, since AI Jiangtu has proposed it, he naturally cannot refuse. He changed the whole bottle and started to drink. What's wrong with Captain AI? Jiangyu drank the wine in the glass and asked puzzledly. He didn't mean to go crazy with the two of them. After all, being drunk is still very uncomfortable. Even a mage can't stand drinking like this. The girl was pushed by a pig, so she is very unhappy. Nanju also drank a bottle generously, and then responded. Seeing that Nanju also took a bottle, Jiangyu and Guanyu unconsciously moved their butts and pulled some distance from them. Damn, I forgot that Nanju, a tomboy, is also a soldier. Look at your cowardly looks. Come on, don't go home until you are drunk. Nanju opened another bottle and handed it to AI Jiangtu and Tang Mao. Having just finished a bottle and looking at another one in his hand, Tang Mao was stunned and said, Big sister, I don't think I have offended you, right? Drink, why are you talking so much nonsense? AI Jiangtu interrupted. Tang Mao finally understood why Zhao Menan and Mo Fan didn't come back to watch the show. Perhaps they knew how much these two people could drink? Question mark? Based on the few glasses he drank, if he met these two, he would be drunk to death. Although he also likes to drink, he is obviously not as strong as these two. Tonight is destined to be a night of hangover. In the end, as expected, He didn't even know when the dinner ended. Anyway, when he woke up, he was already in his bed. The one who took care of him was naturally Tang Yu. How do you feel seeing Tang Mao wake up? Tang Yu asked in a calm voice. From the tone, it seems that he is a little angry? Question mark. It's okay. Just a little dizzy. Tang Mao responded honestly. Even if you are in good shape, you don't have to work so hard, right? Look at how drunk you were yesterday. Tang Yu continued. You don't know. AI Jiang Tu, that bastard, just wanted to get me drunk. If AI Jiang Tu is not allowed to find some confidence, how can everyone get along happily in the future? After all, he gave his sister too. But of course he couldn't say this kind of thing openly. If he didn't understand others, how could he not understand Tang Yu? He didn't lose face yesterday. That was simply because there were so many people and he didn't want to slap her in the face. For her to accept that her man had relationships with so many women, any normal woman would definitely not be reasonable. As the captain of the national government team, he is not as strong as me, grew up in the army, and drinks less than me. How can he survive? Tang Mao continued. Tang Yu said with disgust, don't I know that his sister was at the table yesterday? Tang Mao was speechless for a moment. Isn't this going to kill the conversation? Gather. At this moment, Mu Ningxu walked in. From her slightly flustered look, it can be seen that something must have happened. What's wrong, Ningxu? Sister Yu, Zubo brought some people to our house. Mu Ningxu glanced at Tang Mao, then looked at Tang Yu and responded. Oh. Pretty soon, I'll go meet him. As soon as he heard that there was a chance to escape, Tang Mao hurriedly sat up, and while talking, he had already walked out. He even saved the time to wash up. Mu Ningxu looked at Tang Mao and walked out like this, without even asking, which made her stunned. Then she said anxiously, Sister Tang Yu, let's go quickly. If Zubo is beaten to death by him, then the country will not tolerate him. Don't worry about it. He went out without saying a word, just because he was afraid that I would talk about what happened yesterday. Although he was a little reckless, he still has a clear mind on some major issues. Tang Yu looked like she had seen through everything and said without any hurry. Mu Ningxu was still a little worried, so she followed him out. Outside the gate of the villa, when Tang Mao arrived, at first glance, the number of people coming was really shocking. In addition to Zubo, there was also Chief Pang Lei and several old guys with strong auras. It seemed that they should all belong to the Forbidden City Magic Association. Chief Pang, why don't you go in now? Tang Mao came over and asked Pang Lei with a smile. Seeing Tang Mao coming, Zubo immediately took the lead and walked out, angrily saying, Tang Mao, what did you do to my son? Zubo. Seeing Zubo's angry look, Pang Lei hurriedly scolded him. Damn it, they came to beg Tang Mao. You are so fierce right from the start, looking like you are looking for trouble. Do you still want your son to be saved? Question mark. If it weren't for their Zuhu and Iao's request, he wouldn't have come here to save face. But who doesn't know what kind of person Tang Mao is? Question mark. You are not sure in the first place, and you are still doing this? Question mark. Pang Lei wanted to slap this kind of teammate. In fact, Zubo is not a cunning person, but it is related to his son and the future of their ancestral family, so it is inevitable that he will have some irrational behavior. After hearing Pang Lei's scolding, Zubo retreated to the back. Pang Lei, although we are not friends regardless of age, for Jiang Yu's sake, I still remind you that it is better not to get involved in some things. After all, I don't want to slap you in the face. Before Pang Lei could speak, Tang Mao had already spoken. As soon as he saw Zubo and Pang Lei who came with him, he immediately understood what was going on. However, since he had taken action, he had never thought of saving him at all. Moreover, to put it bluntly, even if he rescued him, Zhu Xiangshan was already useless. No matter how he recovered, he was no different from some ordinary superclass mages. In fact, after a night, there was no possibility of his strength expanding in the future. Therefore, even if you saved him, it would be impossible to turn hostility into friendship. Moreover, when Tang Mao attacked, he had no intention of saving him. His Zhu Xiangshan could be said to be a chicken used to scare the monkeys. He was not idle, who would come to cause trouble, and who would help him recover after he beat him. Not possible. Chapter 697. Zubo is eager to save his son. When Pang Lei heard this, he thought to himself, it's over. Zubo's position was indeed not as high as his, but Zuhu and Iao, this old fox, was still very prestigious in the international community, and Pang Lei came here entirely for his face. Originally, Pang Lei thought that Tang Mao would give him some face. But now that Zubo had done this, and Tang Mao had said so much, he knew that there was no room for easing the matter. After all, when he came, his apprentice had said that in front of Tang Mao, anyone who offended him would not be given face, not to mention him. Even the current speaker Xiao Zheng, who was in a hot position, might not be given face. With a triad mentality, Pang Lei still came. After all, he could make people give him face, and his favors were definitely important. But in this situation, it was obviously better to keep silent than to speak. After hearing what Tang Mao said, Zubo was even more uncalm, and his own momentum burst out in an instant. As the second in command of the Forbidden City Magic Association, he was naturally not just there to eat and drink. Moreover, he is also the second in command in the Zhu family. He is also a full cultivator of 4 element. He may not be a match for Pang Lei, but in his opinion, he is more than enough to deal with Tang Mao. Of course, Zubo was planning to take action from the beginning. It was Zuhu and Iao who said that Tang Mao's magic was very strange, and he should try not to take action if possible. However, in the current situation, Zubo, who is eager to save his son, can do nothing but take action. Tang Mao, I advise you to go back with me honestly to save Xiangshan, otherwise, your Yuxu City and Yuxu Mountain will be destroyed today. Zubo threatened Tang Mao with red eyes. Pang Lei saw that Zubo was going to take action, and hurriedly scolded, Zubo, what do you want to do? Is there still a law? If I remember correctly, in private territory, if someone stirs up trouble, it can be killed, right? Tang Mao didn't take Zubo's anger seriously at all, but muttered. Some old guys who followed were all stunned. They all knew about the duel between Tang Mao and Zhu Xiangshan, and even knew about the crazy words he had said. As a young man, everyone can understand that he brags. But you are just an entry-level superclass mage. How dare you be so arrogant in front of their older generation? Tang Mao, calm down. If you two fight here, no one will be blamed. Pang Lei hadn't persuaded him yet, but he also said he wanted to fight. He was really in a headache. If he knew that things would turn out like this, he would never get involved in this matter. What an arrogant boy. I want to see if your strength is as hard as your mouth. Zubo finished speaking and began to fuse the body of the demon with his strength, plus the secret method of the Zhu family. After the fusion was completed, Zubo's aura completely reached the realm of the Great Monarch. There was even a little feeling that he almost stepped halfway into the Supreme Monarch. However, he had beaten the Supreme Monarch before. Moreover, the spirit of Zhu Xiangshan made him a fortune. How could Tang Mao refuse Zubo's offer? Old man, come with me. However, even if they wanted to fight, Tang Mao would definitely not do it in front of his own house. After all, this place could not withstand their destruction. 6 wings appeared behind him, and Tang Mao left here directly. Zubo thought that Tang Mao wanted to escape, so he used the wing magic tool to chase him. Pang Lei saw that the two did not give him a chance to stop him, and immediately contacted Zuhu and Iao. After all, he was the one who invited him to come, but Zubo was asking for death, so he certainly would not take the responsibility. On the other side, Tang Mao flew all the way to the Nanling area, which was the territory of the Silver Dome Lord. Zubo also chased all the way here. When he saw Tang Mao stop, he rushed up without hesitation. He merged with the Lion King. Although he was not as strong as Zhu Xiangshan's tiger spirit that was taken away, he was definitely a first-class existence in Zhu's home, and his way of attack was naturally simple and rough. A pair of sharp claws seemed to tear Tang Mao apart. Gravity suppression. But before Zubo could scratch Tang Mao, he was restricted in midair. With Tang Mao's peak level 8, or even almost level 9 mental power, even if the space system is only 1 level beyond the super level, it is still not a big problem to suppress Zubo. Zubo was suppressed and unable to move, and his mind was slightly clearer. He knew that Tang Mao's strength was not weak. However, he did not expect that he could suppress himself with a space system? ultrasound. However, although his body was restricted, he could still launch this kind of sound wave attack with the help of the sound system he studied and the fused lion spirit. Roar, roar, roar. Seeing his mouth open and releasing circles of purple light, Tang Mao had to choose to give up suppressing him and moved to high altitude in an instant. But the moment he just appeared, Zubo actually attacked again. Knowing that the other party was eager for revenge and his fighting power was even more terrifying when he was angry, Tang Mao naturally did not dare to despise him anymore. Ice Crystal Prison. Compared to the usual Ice Crystal Prison to protect himself, this time it wrapped Zubo layer by layer. After freezing Zubo temporarily, Tang Mao teleported again, widening the distance between them. And Zubo also broke through the ice at this time. Fire area. But this time is enough for Tang Mao to go all out. After the fire area was unfolded, this area was like a mountain of fire, and the temperature rose rapidly. The gate of the hell, molten hellstone. A big door opened, and then, the flaming reefs rushed towards Zubo. The huge molten firestone. Even if he wanted to hide, there was no chance. Coincidentally, Zubo had no intention of hiding at all. He thought that, after being possessed by the big demon, he could withstand the power of the fire. It was also because of this illusion that he rushed forward. After a punch smashed a huge molten firestone, Zubo felt like his hand was about to melt. In an instant, he lost his breeze. Boom. Boom. After the molten flamestone impacted and landed behind, the entire mountain instantly caught fire. The mountain monsters living in the mountain were also boiling for a while, and they began to run for their lives. Of course, those in the mountain, at this moment, absolutely had no way to survive. After all, his flames were enough to turn the attacked place into a fiery purgatory. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 698 Zubo dies. Zubo dodged almost all the molten flame stones that followed, except for the first wave of bombardment. But even so, he was covered with a magic tool. What made him feel numbed was that even so, his armor magic tool actually had cracks. It was hard to imagine, if he was hit on the body, could he still withstand it? Question mark? At this moment, he understood why Zhu Xiangshan was defeated so miserably. The perfect superclass magician was suppressed for a short time, let alone Zhu Xiangshan. However, Zubo did not think that Tang Mao was stronger than him. He only needed to wait for the output of the fire magic to end, and then it would be time to counterattack. And his defensive magic tools were not just armor magic tools. As the second in command of the Zhu family, he naturally had no shortage of good defensive magic tools. Bang bang bang. After the bombing of the Gate of the Hell of Fire was over, Zubo realized that his defensive magic tools were almost exhausted. Hoo 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 hoo. However, before he could show it, a strong wind suddenly blew up. Thousand Leaf Blade, Slaughter Wind Slash. The violent sandstorm condensed into a wind sword, which was raised high, and the next moment, it chopped down. Zubo just thought that he only needed to resist the attack of the fire system to fight back. However, although the strong wind that rolled up the sandstorm was not as destructive as the fire system, he still did not dare to resist it, and the remaining defensive magic tools were also used one by one to resist. Looking at Zubo's high quality defensive magic tools one after another, Tang Mao couldn't help but feel envious. Damn. This Zhu family is really a big family. My own destruction magic is definitely destroying everything. But you can't resist the magic tools and magic tools coming one after another. Moreover, almost every one of his defensive magic weapons is not an ordinary one. Damn it, let's see how many times you can block it. As Tang Mao finished speaking, his arms were filled with the power of thunder. Thunderbolt. Boom boom. Zubo, who had just resisted the violent sandstorm, already felt something was wrong. Because Tang Mao's intelligence was that the thunder system was the most prominent. And just now, the magic he used was just wind and fire. However, he had already used all his high-level defensive magic weapons. Exclamation mark. When the thunder began to fall in this large area, Zubo thought to himself, not good. But the destructive range of Thunderbolt was almost dozens of miles around. Even if he wanted to escape, he had no chance at all. Fortunately, this was a group attack destruction magic, so he didn't have to wait to die here. After a roar, Zubo approached Tangmao with all his strength. I don't know what to say. Tangmao looked at Zubo, who was rushing towards him, not in a hurry at all. Just when he was about to approach Tangmao, the thunder in the sky, that had been accumulating power for a long time, fell on his body from all directions. Boom boom. 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 The thunder whipped his body, and Zubo also yelled in pain. The breeze just now had been thrown away for a long time. At this moment, he was almost a poor guy surrounded by thunder. Even for a superclass mage, without the protection of defensive magic tools and magic weapons, the body is very fragile. What's more, Tangmao's thunder method was all out. When the thunder continued to bombard halfway, Zubo began to fall. Even at that moment, his vitality was weak and pitiful. Obviously, he had merged with the Great Demon and his strength reached the level of the Great Monarch, but he gave Tangmao the opportunity to output. He was so stupid that he chose defense. Moreover, Tangmao only cast 3 superclass magics, so even if he had high-grade magic weapons and magic tools, Zubo could not withstand Tangmao's bombardment. While falling, Zubo was still wailing in pain, but from the moment he stepped into this land, his life was already decided. Tangmao was not joking with him before. He really wanted to destroy him. When Zhu Xiangshan was abolished yesterday, the Zhu family had already been in a situation of life and death with him. Since it has become like this, why should he leave a disaster? Thunder Halberd. No, Tangmao, stop, you can't kill him. Just when Tangmao was about to throw the Thunder Halberd, Pang Lei, who came over, happened to see this scene. Although he knew that Tangmao was very perverted, and heard from Jiang Yu that Tangmao's title of the first under the forbidden spell was not entirely water, he never thought that the battle between Tangmao and Zubo would be resolved so quickly. What he didn't expect was that he seemed to be unscathed, while Zubo was already in danger of his life! Exclamation mark. Hearing this, Tangmao glanced at Pang Lei, and then threw the lightning halberd in his hand. The moment Zubo dared to come to Yuxunyu City to threaten him, his fate was already decided. This person, I will kill him myself. No one else can help. Puff. The lightning halberd pierced directly into Zubo's body, and the next moment, it exploded with a bang. This area has directly turned into a wasteland. Now the power of his magic is equivalent to the power of the forbidden spell, and the damage caused to the land is naturally the same as the forbidden spell. The unlucky Zubo didn't even attack, but he died. And his soul and the soul of the big demon in his body were naturally absorbed into Tangmao's hands. Pang Lei stopped when he saw this. He looked at Tangmao helplessly and a little reproachfully. Do you really want to fight to the death with the Zhu family? He had never seen someone who did things without considering the consequences. Yes, internationally, there are regulations that, if someone enters someone else's territory with bad intentions, the local lord can make a judgment. But Zubo is the second in command of the Forbidden City Magic Association. Tangmao was killed just like that? Question mark? It's not that I don't mind that the old man from their Zhu family comes too. After all, they want to kill me, so why don't I want to kill them all? Tangmao said coldly. Hearing this, Pang Lei didn't know how to respond for a moment. Although Tangmao killed someone, it was Zubo who started the trouble. Maybe he himself didn't expect that Tangmao's strength would be so strong, right? At the same time, Tang Yu and Muningsu also rushed here. To be honest, even Tang Yu didn't expect that Tangmao would really take action. What's more outrageous is that, after they learned about this, they rushed here, but they didn't expect that Zubo had turned into a charred corpse in such a short time. Chapter 699, Rewards and Updates. Tang Yu and Muningsu also came over at this time. When they saw Zubo's body, Muningsu looked like she knew it would be like this, while Tang Yu blamed him. How could you kill him? Pang Lei sighed slightly, and then put Zubo, who had turned into charcoal, into a box. I don't know where he got the box from. Or did he expect Zubo to die from the beginning, so he prepared it in advance? After collecting the black ash of Zubo, Panglei looked at Tang Mao again. Boy, take care of yourself. Alas, when he came here, he was confident that Tang Mao would give him face, and the Zhu family would still owe him a favor. But when he left, Panglei felt a little embarrassed and complained about Tang Mao. But he also knew that it was more of a fool like Zubo. Can't you be a little patient? I really don't know how to ask for help? Question mark. Because Muningsu and Mushi were already on the opposite side. Now, Zhu Xiangshan of the Zhu family has been crippled. Of course, Zhu Xiangshan is still alive, but Zubo is really dead. He just died like that. In addition to being shocked that the old man died like that, Tang Yu also refreshed Tang Mao's understanding of Tang Mao's strength. A person with full cultivation of the superclass in his hands did not last for a few minutes and died. Sister Tang Yu, what should we do next? Muningsu looked at the silent Tang Mao and had to ask Tang Yu to divert her attention. What do you mean? Isn't it just that Zubo killed him? He came to our territory without permission to make trouble, so we just kill him. But since he has been offended, what is there to panic about? Regarding his attitude, the two women didn't know what to say. Although Tang Yu could still play a role, if she watched here, she still had a trial to manage. Naturally, she couldn't stay here all the time. If there is anything, don't think about fighting it yourself. Remember to tell me. On the way back, Tang Yu explained to Muningsu. Muningsu nodded and then asked, Sister Yu, are you leaving? Yes, there are still many things to do in the trial, and I can't stay here forever. As she said that, Tang Yu looked at Tang Mao in front of her and said, Tang Mao, if you continue to make trouble like this, even if you have made great contributions, you will still be sanctioned. If you don't consider yourself, you should also consider Yuxu New City and your women, right? I know, you can go back with peace of mind. The reason why he dared to touch Zubo was only because the power of the Zhu family was only international after all. Moreover, he had already come to the door. How could he let him go? Although, Panglei was also offended by the way. However, with Jiang Yu's relationship, this is not unsalvageable. He really didn't act without considering anything. Although Tang Yu was helpless about this, she didn't say anything. After all, although Tang Mao was a little reckless, he was not a child. It's impossible for me to control him all the time, right? The most important thing is that this little bastard promised, but he did not listen to him at all. In the evening, Tang Mao received a call from Xiao Zheng. However, after learning about it, he felt that Tang Mao could not be blamed for this matter. After all, it was his Zhu family who came to cause trouble first. If Zhu Xiangshan had not invited him to fight, he would have been beaten half crippled. If Zubo had not come to make a scene, he would have been killed. Of course, Xiao Zheng was also curious about what Tang Mao's strength was now. Although Zubo was not the top in the country, he was definitely in the first line. But, he was killed by Tang Mao? Moreover, from what Panglei said, it seemed that Tang Mao did not use the power of the devil. With such a growth rate in Tang Mao's actions, Xiao Zheng naturally favored him intentionally. Even for Zhu Huanao, a man of the older generation, he could not give face. If Zhu Xiangshan had won the previous fight, Tang Mao and his Yuxu New City would have been oppressed to the point of falling apart. Seeing everything clearly, Xiao Zheng naturally would not choose to stand on the side of the Zhu family. Of course, the meaning of Xiao Zheng's call was actually to tell Tang Mao that he was on his side. No one could take him. Tang Mao naturally expressed his gratitude for this. This matter naturally shocked the world, but after all, Zubo took action in a private area. He was killed because he was not as skilled as others. Who can say anything? More people saw a different side. The three heroes of the Zhu family, one died, one was disabled, and one was about to be buried. They were afraid that they would be useless. More than 10 days have passed, and there has been no reasonable result for this matter. Although Zhu Huanao is not ready to give up, he is much smarter than Zubo. Zubo is not Tang Mao's opponent. How can he, an old man who is half buried, do it? When people get old, the spirit of fighting to the death is obviously not enough. Of course, he did not do nothing. During this period, he went to the Holy Court, the Holy City, and even the headquarters of the Magic Association to find connections. Although his zoo family is no longer alive, the huge family property is still there. Astria naturally called Tang Mao to tell these things as soon as possible. She was naturally the most proficient in collecting information. Let him do whatever he wants. There is no need to care about him before he makes a move. Tang Mao said lightly while playing with Apus's hair. Did you fight with the people from the Court of Dissenters before? Apus asked again. They were looking for trouble, so I beat them up. You really can't be at peace for a day. Apus heard this and felt a headache. Even if you are strong and talented, you can't defend all the powerful organizations and clans in the world, right? If they don't come to provoke me, why would I provoke them? Anyway, keep a low profile recently. I will inform you as soon as there is any news. Astria hung up the phone after she finished speaking. If you do something to death that day, remember to cancel the contract with me. I don't want to die with you. Apus, lying in Tang Mao's arms, actually felt a little floating for what he did. What are you afraid of? These people have too many things to worry about. Unless they choose to give up something and take responsibility, it's not so easy for them to attack me. Tang Mao pinched Apus's delicate body and then said, even if you die, you have to accompany me, otherwise, with your character, I don't know how many hats you will put on me at that time. Fuck, what are you doing? He is not made of iron, so of course it hurts to bite him. You know it hurts too? Apus said with a little sarcasm. Tang Mao's mouth twitched slightly. This revenge came a little too fast. Turning over, Tang Mao thought to himself that, if you bite me, I will give you a needle. It's quite reasonable. In this regard, Apus thought it was indeed quite reasonable, so she not only did not refuse, but also gave Tang Mao a needle. It seems that she has gotten used to it, and the pain is almost non-existent. Of course, it may also be numbness. Chapter 700, Mochizuki Chikusan's request for help. While he was sharpening his gun with Apus, Mochizuki Chikusan suddenly called. At this time, when he was full of energy, Tang Mao had no intention to answer the phone and ignored it directly. However, the phone kept ringing like a rhythm, especially when the incoming music was at its climax. It sounded so pleasant. There was no way. Seeing her insisting on calling, even in Tiger, he understood that Mochizuki Chikusan must have encountered some trouble. After all, the number one jungler is never clingy. Hello. What did you do? You didn't answer my call for so long. As soon as the phone was connected, Mochizuki Chikusan's slightly anxious and angry complaints came. You'd better tell me what's the matter. I didn't bring my phone just now. Tang Mao said nonsense. And Apus next to him gave Tang Mao a contemptuous look. The phone was clearly next to him, and this guy really spoke without saying anything. However, after being with Tang Mao for a long time, Apus has gotten used to it. It can be said that in this world, besides Tang Yu, the person who knows him best is the descendant of Medusa. She is the one who truly has a spiritual connection with Tang Mao. After all, their lives are connected. I need your help. Mochizuki Chikusan complained for a while, but in fact, it was more like she was acting like a spoiled child. Then she said, those pillars that appear in the volcanic archipelago are not pillars, but tails. You are not talking about Tamamonami, are you? Tang Mao asked subconsciously. Mochizuki Chikusan was slightly stunned, and then continued, it is a nine-tailed demon fox. Since it appeared, almost all the demons near the Japanese waters have been commanded by it, and recently, they have launched a full-scale attack. Xuanshao Pavilion is in a precarious state, because Gaomu and that group of elite mages died in the volcanic archipelago. So I want to ask you to help me. Is there no one in your country? Now the country has asked for help from various countries, but at a time when sea monsters are rampant, neighboring countries have no way to reinforce. I don't care about other places, but Xuanshao Pavilion is where our Mochizuki family guards, and there are so many serious criminals here. We must not lose it. Can you help me? The international community has stated that it will arrange reinforcement as soon as possible, but requires us to hold on for at least 7 days. Mochizuki Chikusan is obviously really at a loss. Now with the defense force of Xuanshao Pavilion, it may not be able to cope with a few high tides. The current high tide is not once every few days, but several times a day. There were so many sea monsters that it seemed like they could never be killed. Tang Mao pondered for a moment and finally said, okay, but let me make it clear first. If you can't hold on, I will drag you away for your life. Don't talk to me about the Wangayu family. You belong to me now. Hey. Wangayu Kyankson didn't have the slightest intention of refutation and responded heavily in Japanese. After hanging up the phone, Tang Mao turned to look at Apis and immediately said, do you know about demons like the nine-tailed demon fox? In fact, when Muningsu described the 9 pillars to the sky and said that it was furry, Tang Mao had doubts. After all, China has ancient totem creatures and fierce beasts. Similarly, other countries also have creatures that defend their territories, and they also have fierce creatures. However, compared with China's totems, some creatures that once protected humans in other countries were either sealed or destroyed. Simply put, if you can kill them, and if you can't kill them, seal them. But what I didn't expect was that, by accident, Muningsu actually broke a seal. So he really had to go to Shuangshao Pavilion this time. At least, he needed to make sure whether the old man Wangai Mingjian knew about this. Apis curled his lips and said immediately, I know, ancient creatures, bloodline is not weaker than my queen mother's big demon. Bullshit, do you need to tell me that? How come Tang Mao didn't know that the other party was a big demon, and then said, I'm asking you what kind of magic the other party is good at, and whether there are any weaknesses. Then how should I know? I haven't removed it. Apis said unhappily. Then you just say you don't know. Why are you talking so much? After saying that, Tang Mao got up and walked towards the bathroom. Apis looked at this man who spoiled her to the sky more than half an hour ago, but was fierce to her more than half an hour later, and thought to himself, sure enough, Tang Mao's mouth is a lie. Because of Wangayu Kyangson's request for help, he had to stop his research, packed up and talked to Muningsu, and left with Apis. After all, he still had a lawsuit on his side. If he didn't find something at his ancestral home, wouldn't Yuxunyu City suffer? Telling Muningsu that he was going to Japan was actually just to let her know as soon as possible if anything happened. In fact, even if Tang Mao was not there, as long as there were no forbidden spell mages, there would not be much damage to Yuxunyu City. After all, Zuansh, Baksha, Xiaoyu Moth Phoenix and Xiaobei who were all left behind by Tang Mao. The only one he brought was Fei Lion. This guy has been recovering in the totem vessel since he came back from Xianshan after being injured. Of course, so much time has passed. It is estimated that he has recovered a long time ago, but this guy is typically unwilling to come out to work. But sometimes, if you want to slack off while working for Tang Mao, it is naturally impossible. Look, it was forcibly pulled out today. Moo. After coming out, Fei Lion roared, and then he nestled directly on the beach. You are really used to being comfortable, right? Hurry up and get up. Seeing that this guy looked like he didn't want to move and wanted to bask in the sun comfortably, Tang Mao went up and kicked him on the head. However, without using magic, his kick was just like a fly kicking him. Fei Lion didn't feel anything at all. Boom. Tang Mao had a bad temper when he saw that it didn't cooperate, or Thunderbolt immediately fell. This time Fei Lion reacted, and his huge wings directly covered his body. Boom. However, when the thunder landed on its protective wing, Fei Lion realized that this was a warning. It had no killing power at all. Moo. Although it had no killing power, Fei Lion was still very unhappy because he was threatened. Hurry up and get up and leave for Japan. If you are lazy again, I will give you the totem source power. Tang Mao looked at Fei Lion who was in a state of being a big shot and continued. Seeing that Tang Mao was not joking, Fei Lion seemed to decide to obey temporarily and stood up immediately. Tang Mao held Apis and jumped up to its head. Moo. After another unhappy roar, they finally set off from the coastline of Phenio City. This scene made the patrol mages of Phenio City who were guarding here stunned. The moment Fei Lion appeared, the strong and terrible sense of oppression almost made them dare not breathe. If it weren't for Tang Mao's relationship there, they would have sounded the alarm and released a red alert, just for the size of the big monster and the breath it exuded. Even if the opponent was only one, everyone knew how terrible the destruction caused by this level of monster was. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like, Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.